It is Friday night. It's actually Thursday night. East Lansing, Michigan. Come on in, gather around. My name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Back on the air, first time in a while. Great to have you back with us. Hope you're having a great summer in the great state of Michigan, or whatever state you're residing in, or whatever country you're residing in. We have Spartan Maggers all over the world that follow us here at Spartan Mag Live. Trying to get back into the routine of doing it once every week. The high school baseball season is over, so I have a little bit more time starting now. Still some baseball going on, but we'll have time to get in here and talk Michigan State football. It's June, but a lot of Michigan State football happenings. A lot of Michigan State happenings in and around the athletic department here in the early summer. A lot of good stuff to talk about. Matthew Johnson, good to see you checking in first. Make sure that the sound is okay. Looks like the sound is okay, unless you give me a thumbs down. Brad Forshenko checking in from Austin, Texas. I'm sure we'll have a lot of the usual suspects getting ready to talk Michigan State. We got some thumbs ups there. I always get confused about the plural for that, but never figured it out. We're going to talk Michigan State football recruiting. We've been talking about it over the Underground Bunker message board a lot. In case you're new to this nonsense, my name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com, your complete source, your one-stop shopping for Michigan State news, analysis, infotainment a little bit also, and conversation over at the Underground Bunker message board. Underground Bunker message board is the daily narrative on Michigan State sports. It's the church of what's happening now. And over at the Underground Bunker message board earlier today, I told our Spartan Mag subscribers that we would be having a Spartan Mag Live tonight, and I invited them to post questions they may have. And we have 15 good questions we're going to get to tonight, mailbag style. Also, Jason Killop, Michigan State recruiting anchor for SpartanMag.com, covering Michigan State recruiting. He will be here at the bottom of the hour. That's in about 15 or 16 minutes. He'll be calling in. Let me make sure I got that hooked up. And we look forward to that, breaking down some of the happenings with Michigan State recruiting. And there are a lot of happenings. A lot of visitors coming in this weekend. The month of June is the month for football recruiting these days, and Michigan State has been lighting it up this month. I've posted on the Underground Bunker message board. It's unlike anything I've seen while covering Michigan State recruiting. I mentioned in an article today that I wrote about Samson Okunlola, who's an offensive lineman from Thayer Academy in Massachusetts, ranked the number 15 player in the country. Go over to SpartanMag.com. Check that out right now. It is free, this story. Number 2 offensive tackle in the country, I think it is. And I just outlined the number of 4-star recruits Michigan State has had this month. And I mentioned that I've been doing it for a lot of years, more than 30 years pretty much. And in past years, if Michigan State were to get official visits from 5 players in the national top 250, that would be a pretty good year for Michigan State most years. Been doing this a long time. 5 is usually pretty good. That's what Michigan State had last year, 5 official visitors that were in the Rivals.com top 250. Michigan State got commitments from 2 of those, 3, I guess. Ben Van Sumeren, Caton Hauser, somebody else. Got it in the story. I mean, Dylan Tatum was in there for a little bit, then he dropped out. I think ended up with 2 maybe in the top 250 with 5 visitors. Michigan State to this point in this recruiting class has 11 commitments. 7 are 4-star recruits. Last year, Michigan State had 5 4-star recruits, and that was a good number. That tied for the most Michigan State has had since 2016. And with 5 4-star recruits, Michigan State had a class last year ranked number 23 in the country, which is a good year rankings-wise for Michigan State. Anything in the top 25 for Michigan State recruiting is kind of B plus territory. 5 4-star recruits last year out of 23. Right now, Michigan State with 7 4-star recruits out of 11. Maybe halfway done with this year's class. You do the math. I mean, we're projecting it. I mean, Michigan State could end up with 14 or 15 4-stars. Which 14 or 15 top 250s would be the most in the 85 scholarship era. 1993, they had a lot, but that was just coming out of the 92 scholarships and down toward 85. Other than that, quite frankly, Michigan State has not recruited like this, going national, coast to coast, California, Georgia, Texas, Florida, They've not recruited like this since the days of yore that we used to read about. Days of Michigan State football mythology. Some of you are old enough to remember the 1960s. You look at that one class, the class that produced Clinton Jones, George Webster, Bubba Smith, Gene Washington. What did Michigan State have? 5 of the top 8 players selected in the NFL draft that year? Someone can correct me on that. Something like that. 5 of the first 8 drafted were from Michigan State in 1966. That team was a part of 2 national championships. Arguably, you could say that was the best recruiting class in the history of college football. There's a few since then, some Hurricane classes, some Alabama classes that can match that in terms of first-round draft choices and national championships. But back then, 1966, back when they didn't rank recruiting classes, Michigan State was doing it like no one else. For a lot of reasons, they did it well back then. They had a lot of things going for them. Duffy Daugherty was a pragmatic. Mel Tucker, not unlike that. Mel Tucker came in here. He said he was going to do it this way. He said he was going to put together the type of roster that could compete for a national championship. Said he and his staff would be relentless, hard workers. They had a plan. They're working their plan. I was like, okay, I'll believe it when I see it. I thought that he did have some recruiting potential, some juice, some style, some charisma, some pizzazz, plus a great resume. I thought he had a chance to do some things recruiting-wise at Michigan State that hadn't been done in a while. But in terms of putting together a roster as he intended that would be similar to the ones that he had coached at Georgia and Alabama, I was like, well, that's a nice thing to say, but I'll believe it when I see it. Mel Tucker has high goals, very ambitious. He thought he could do it if he put it all together and polished it up, got everybody on the same page, and never let up on the gas pedal. And that's what we're seeing right now. Some of the social media coming out of these official visit weekends, outstanding, glossy, sizzle, style, substance. This has to be what he had in mind. I've not talked to him in a couple of weeks. Saw him at the Detroit Economic Club 2 or 3 weeks ago. Talked a little bit with him. Saw him a little bit at a camp last week. I didn't get a chance to talk to him because I had to leave. But did talk to some Michigan State assistant coaches in Big Rapids a couple of weeks ago. They were excited. They were optimistic about some of the visits coming up. They knew they had some big-time visits coming, and they just needed to break the ice and get some commitments. Those commitments started a couple weeks ago. Had some here lately with several commitments, 4-star recruits, commitments this week. And the ice has been broken. And for some of those guys that like Michigan State, some of those recruits, it becomes like musical chairs. That's what happened to the defensive backs. Once a few start committing, then they get worried that some of the chairs will be taken. Looking over here at the comments. Go ahead and post some questions over here in the comments. We will field those later in the evening. But as far as Michigan State's recent commitments, Clay Whedon, number 128 in the country, out of Tampa, offensive lineman, 6'6", 295. Basically, Auburn came in second. Michigan State beating Auburn for a kid from Florida. Jordan Hall, top 250. IMG Academy, Bradenton, Florida. Linebacker. Came to Michigan State, committed, canceled a visit to North Carolina, canceled a visit to Michigan. He's a guy that's been wearing Michigan State gear at IMG throughout the spring. Michigan State finished on that one. Jalen Braxton, top 250, corner. I think he is visiting Arkansas this weekend, but I really like this kid Braxton. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Other guys that have already committed, Kedrick Riscano, top 250, running back from New Caney, Texas. Tells our Jason Killop, he was thinking about taking some other visits. Not going to happen now. Loved his visit to Michigan State. Brendan Parachek, 4-star out of Dexter, Michigan, number 10 in the country. A lot of schools still recruiting him. He told Jason Killop, don't worry about it. He's locked in. Some of the others that visited, there's been several of them. We'll get over those, get some of those as we go along. But basically, what I'm getting at is Michigan State. I've lost count. I think 23 official visitors here in the month of June that are ranked in the national top 250. And that's not counting Chance Rucker, a commitment to Michigan State had a couple weeks ago, who was in the top 250 when he visited, then dropped out, became a 3-star. I don't agree with that. I think he looks like 4-star material to me. And I'll tell you when I think someone's a 3-star. I've said that in the past with Michigan State commitments that are 4 stars. But Rucker, he would give them 24. That'd be 25 if you count an unofficial visit they had from 5-star defensive end Jaden Wayne from Tacoma, Washington. And just today, another visitor announced defensive tackle Caden McDonald, Sewanee, Georgia, North Gwinnett High School, 6'3", 310, number 188 in the country, big defensive tackle. You count Wayne, you count McDonald, you count Rucker, you're talking about 25, 26 national top 250 recruits visiting in the month of June. I've not seen anything like it. In terms at Michigan State, in terms of peer group, I've not looked at it lately, but somebody posted a tally board about it. Basically, Georgia, Alabama, maybe Ohio State, and Michigan State, they're the 4 that are getting this type of talent to visit in June. Tucker said it would be like this. I was like, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm seeing it. I believe it. And now commitments are starting to happen. Can they keep it rolling? I don't see why not, man. There's a lot of stuff going on. Tuck's coming. He's got a lot cooking. And people are eager, recruits are eager to come see it. So are recruits' parents. So are recruits' high school coaches. It's a happening. You might not be hearing about it a lot in the national college football circles, but those that watch closely can see something going on at Michigan State. And I'm not one to really bang the pots and pans about this stuff, but this is different. It doesn't guarantee that Michigan State's going to sign a top 10 class. Doesn't mean that all these highly ranked recruits are going to become all Big Ten players, NFL players. But like I said in the article today, it's been proven in the college football playoff era that in order to win a national championship, you have to have top 10 recruiting classes. And Michigan State is setting themselves up to have a top 10 recruiting class this year. Now, Michigan State's been a college football playoff participant in the past without top 10 classes. You can get there, but to go all the way, you need to get players that are like this. That doesn't mean all these guys are great, but Michigan State is shopping in the correct aisle. And it's interesting to see. And, hey, Tucker is not taking his foot off the gas pedal. No one on his staff is. And Michigan State's always had potential to do something like this, but in terms of recruiting far away from home, you need something special going on, and Tucker's got that going on, and it happens to coincide with the new name, image, and likeness era, and Michigan State is mobilized in that area. I'm not saying Michigan State's going to be able to spend with Texas or Texas A&M or some other schools, but they're mobilized to match a lot of programs for a lot of players, and if you match, then it comes down to old school recruiting. How much do they like your campus? How much do they like your staff? What can the staff do for them? And a lot of these recruits are being turned down by what Michigan State's been telling them about what they can do off the field. So that's all resonating. And it's interesting for Michigan State right now. Hey, so what we're going to do is before we have Killip coming on here in a couple of minutes, let's go to the mailbag right now. Sola in Westland, Michigan. He says, Jim, what is your prediction for where the 2023 Michigan State recruiting class will rank in the Rivals rankings when all the dust has settled? All right, good question. I would say, last year Michigan State was number 23 in the country with, 5 4-stars. I looked back at last year's rankings, and you look at the top 8 recruiting classes in the country by Rivals.com, the top 8 each had 15 or more 4-star recruits. After that, it was a little bit of drop-off to like 11 4-star recruits for number 9. Michigan State right now, 7 4-star recruits on their way possibly to 14, maybe halfway done. 14 4-star recruits last year would have put you at about number 8 or 9 in the country. Michigan State right now is number 10 in the country in the Rivals rankings. That's going to change a little bit as some of the heavyweights take on more commitments, and some others in the top 10 that already have 20 commitments, but not the star value, they'll drop out, like Northwestern and Cincinnati. So I'm thinking Michigan State's right around number 9 or 10 right now. That would be my projection based on how they're doing right now. But if Michigan State picks it up from here, say they get Okunlola, they get Hicks, they could get up there and knock on the door for top 5. Can't believe I'm saying that. Never thought I'd be covering a Michigan State recruiting operation that had a chance to get a top 5 recruiting class. I thought that was for others. Tucker thought he could. And he's showing right now there's a path to get there. And it's intriguing to watch. Question number 2 from Spartan Green 123 from Parts Unknown. Let me see here. Do it the fast way. All right, we're good. Spartan 123 says, how concerned are you about offensive tackle depth for the Spartans this season? Good question. Quite concerned. Offensive tackle depth not great for Michigan State right now. You're relying on Jarrett Horst, who last year had some issues in the last 1/3 of the season after the Michigan game, and was functional last year at left tackle. He's got the capacity to be better this year. But in terms of relying on him, I've talked to the coaches a little bit, talked to Killip about it, talked to Tucker about it. They don't seem concerned. At least that's what they're telling me. They know I'm a member of the media. I assume they're leveling with me, but they don't seem concerned about Horst. We did not see Horst in the scrimmage, the spring scrimmage. But I'd be a little concerned about that. But he is capable. If he's on the field, he's functional at left tackle. Without him, you have Brandon Baldwin. Last year played a little bit in mop-up time. Saw him extensively in the scrimmage. A guy that's a good athlete. Has to get stronger. Has to get more consistent. Spencer Brown.
Call from
Jason Killop.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
All right, we got Jason Killip. I'll pause and I'll bring Jason in a moment, but let me finish my thought about offensive tackle situation. So Jarrett Horst, he's capable. Spencer Brown, we've talked about it before, looked really good in the bowl game. I was looking at the scrimmage again today, and I still have to go over every single play, and I wanted to get that done before this started tonight, but it's been a busy spring. And I still value that scrimmage because that's the only open practice we've seen. And since the Peach Bowl, that's the grandest nuggets of information we get, especially with depth players, second-string players. Spencer Brown was pretty good in the scrimmage. I thought he was better in the bowl game. They repped Spencer Brown over at left tackle. He's, I think, a third-year player now, maybe fourth year, maybe a fourth-year junior, fourth or third-year sophomore. But anyway, Brown proved himself in the bowl game, but they have to manufacture some depth over there at left tackle by having Brown rep over there. Ethan Boyd, first-year player, freshman out of East Lansing, played right tackle. Looks like he's got a future. But a lot of unproven players there at tackle outside of Horst. They have some ability. I talked to Kapilovic about this a couple of weeks ago. Has anyone worked at offensive tackle that's an interior player just to try to manufacture some depth? I mentioned Samac, and he said, yes, Nick Samac was over there at left tackle a little bit in the spring just to manufacture some depth just in case. They did look in the portal, didn't quite see anything that they liked, that they wanted to move on. There was the one guy from South Carolina that Michigan State was interested in, but there's some snags there in terms of being able to transfer his credits in. I asked a little bit about that, and it looks like less than a 10% chance that can happen right now. So Michigan State looks like they're going to stand pat on the offensive line with what they see right now, not closing the door on it. But am I concerned if I'm Michigan State about offensive tackle depth? Yes. Yes, I am. Good question. Now let's bring in Jason. Thank you for patiently waiting. Recruiting anchor for SpartanMag.com. Jason Killip. How you doing, Jason?
Jim, how's it going? Thank you for having me on here.
Hey, great to have you. Great to have you. I got some questions here from the mailbag, specifically about the recruiting situation, some recruiting questions, and we will get to those in a moment. But your thoughts about the flurry of activity we've seen from Michigan State in the last 2 weeks since the official visits began, June 3rd, with Michigan State picking up, I don't know the number, 4 or 5 commitments here in the last couple of weeks, 4 stars becoming Spartans. Your thoughts about Michigan State breaking some ice, getting some commitments from a lot of big-time visitors that have been on campus lately?
For sure. They've obviously been on a hot streak playing in some big-time recruits, and I don't think the ball will stop rolling quite yet. I think that maybe not this weekend, but with the next weekend being the last weekend of official visits in June, there's going to be a lot of July decisions. I said that last time I was on here, but I think you'll see even more. A lot of the recruits are getting at least 4 out of the 5 of their official visits out of the way in June, and setting commitment dates for July. I think July will be a really busy month for commitments, and that's when you'll see a lot of the class fill up. And of course, you never know with certain guys coming to campus this weekend and next who could join before then. Clay Whedon was supposed to take visits to Auburn, and he decided he had seen enough and went to Michigan State. So there could be guys who come on campus and think they've seen enough and join the Spartan class. But I think July will be a really busy month to keep the ball rolling.
What are you hearing from some of these recruits about their visits to Michigan State? We see a lot of the pictures on social media, a lot of the reaction. Like you said, Clay Whedon, kid from Florida, was planning to take some other visits. He saw enough and shut it down. What are you hearing from some of these recruits after their visits? And you can name drop some of those recruits, any of those that have stuck out to you in terms of comments.
I mean, really all of them. They mentioned the energy, the vibe from Mel Tucker and the coaching staff, and they're really honest about their sales pitch. They want a top 10, top 5 class in the country. They want to win national championships, and they're upfront and honest with kids like Samson Okunloa and Chase Bisonitis and DJ Hicks and Jaden Wayne, that they can be the 5-star recruits that change the perception of Michigan State. As far as, I mean, everyone around the SpartanMag community loves Michigan State, but for a 5-star kid to make that leap, it's a risky jump for just a kid to make. And they're selling that you can be the face, you could be the first one, and the NIL opportunities for being the face of a program like that is huge. And Michigan State's presenting that opportunity, and the energy for that is huge. And not even just like the 5-star, the 4-star kids are hearing the national championship talk, the top 5 recruiting class in the country talk. And so far, most of the things that Mel Tucker has been telling these kids is coming to fruition. I mean, some of these kids he recruited after a 2-5 season and said that this wasn't the Michigan State he wanted to build. And next thing you know, he had 11 wins. So, I mean, the kids are buying into what he's saying. They've seen some of the things that he said come true, and he told them that they'd get new facilities, and it's happening. I mean, some of the things are already in motion, but the recruits are definitely buying in on the pitches that are being sold, and they're starting to really believe it.
Mm-hmm. It's been impressive so far, no question about it. We got a super chat. We got a tip, something in the tip jar here. Personal sponsorship from Gene Riddenauer says, thanks for coming on tonight, Comp. Exciting times. Also, we got Young Feezy Baby. Appreciate personal sponsorship from Young Feezy Baby, saying, Jim, I'm all recovered. Thank you for the well wishes. All class. Reached out to him. He's a Spartan Magger. Had a little illness a couple of weeks ago. Bouncing back. He's with us tonight. Glad to have him. Glad to have the Spartan Maggers listening right now. You know, Michigan State, with the flurry of commitments here in the month of June, started with Chance Rucker out of Denton, Texas, 6'2", 175, big corner. I like him. He was a 4-star when he visited. Been downgraded to a 3-star. I don't really agree with that. We talked about that in the bunker a couple of a week ago. A lot of posts about that. You know, the person that graded him down said there were some speed issues. Saw him in person with some track and field meets or something like that. But on film, big guy that can turn his hips. I like Rucker. Demetrius Bell, wide receiver, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, moves up into the top 25. Into the top 250, committed after that. Jordan Hall, linebacker, Bradenton IMG, 6'3", 228. Jordan Hall, I like his quick first step, quick second step, especially in pass defense. On his pass drops at 45-degree angle, really covers ground. Nice one, Jordan Hall, top 250. Decently physical, solid linebacker. Jalen Braxton. I really like Jalen Braxton. Frisco, Texas, corner, 4-star. Excellent. Clay Whedon, top 200, top 150 type of offensive lineman. Looks the part. Quick feet, big square body, strong guy out of Tampa. He's what they're supposed to look like. And offensive line recruiting, Michigan State commitment from Jonathan Slack back in February. And now Clay Whedon out of Tampa. Michigan State, a lot of visitors in that offensive line position. We'll talk about that in a moment. Some of the questions that are going to be coming Jason Killip's way. tonight. But Jason, going back June 3rd when all this started, David Hicks, 5-star defensive lineman from Katy, Texas. He was on campus. Madden Sanker, 4-star offensive lineman from Douglasville, Georgia. And I did a story about Jelani Thurman, the tight end from Langston Hughes High School in Fairburn, Georgia. And but as far as Hicks goes, a lot of people want to talk about him, one of the top 10 recruits in the country. Katy, Texas. What's the latest with David Hicks? How do you feel he felt about that Michigan State visit coming out of East Lansing June 3rd?
It was interesting because right before Hicks visited Michigan State, he also visited Texas A&M in Oklahoma unofficially, and it's interesting that he visited all of his finalists in the first week of June. I'm not sure if he went on any other visits after that, but for Michigan State's case, the connection with Brandon Jordan is big. That's giving them a chance in the recruitment. He trained him in the 8th grade, and that's a serious factor for Michigan State. Hicks likes Mel Tucker a lot too, and like I said earlier, they're giving that hard sales pitch of being, you could be the face of the class. You can then have opportunities of being the face of a program like that is huge. The fan base would go crazy for a player like that at Michigan State. He wouldn't just be another one on the roster; he'd be the one on the roster. But the Texas schools are pushing hard. Oklahoma's pushing hard. He's going to see Miami this weekend, I believe. It's going to be a really contested recruitment, and I don't think he has any plans to make any sort of decision in the summer. I think he'll probably be a signing day. Someone mentioned that he mentioned in an interview All-American game for a commitment timeline, so he's going to have quite a few twists and turns in his recruitment most likely. And I'd say Michigan State will definitely need to get him back on campus for a game just to keep Michigan State in his mind. But they're definitely in the conversation, and they will be due to Brandon Jordan and that connection and his love for Mel Tucker.
Yeah, Brandon Jordan, Michigan State's new pass rush coach. His presence is really resonating with these recruits. He's an energetic recruiter. Michigan State is utilizing him, and he's saying flat out, come to Michigan State and train like the pros, because Brandon Jordan trains the pros. He is the pass rush whisperer for NFL pass rushers, and he's worked with high school guys, college guys, some of these guys previously. Jaden Wayne, defensive end, Tacoma, Washington, Lincoln High School, ranked number 13 player in the country, ranked number 2 strong side defensive end in the country, 5-star. He visited Michigan State unofficially the weekend of June 3rd. What's the latest vibe with him? And as he gets set for official visits, what's going on with Jaden Wayne? First of all, it's big that he came to Michigan State as an unofficial. That's interesting. What's the vibe with Jaden Wayne right now?
Wayne will see Miami and Oregon next. It was big that he came up on an unofficial visit, and the vibe after the visit was that he wanted to come back and have his mom see the place. His mom hadn't visited with him. So if there's a return visit for Michigan State, then the chances go way up, in my opinion. I think that right now he's definitely interested. He added Michigan State to his top 6 before he'd visited. And all other schools he had already planned official visits to and already visited. And he took an unofficial visit to Michigan State. Like you say, he had to pay his own way, so that shows a lot of interest. He and his family had to pay out of their pocket for that visit, and that's a long ways from Seattle to do it without interest. And he really likes Brandon Jordan. He said he followed Brandon Jordan's work on social media before he got hired to Michigan State. He believes in the development that he could get at Michigan State, and he likes Coach Tucker. But he has 4 official visits this month to Oregon, Miami, and LSU, and then he took one to Georgia in May. And then he plans to take his last one to Alabama. He told me he already talked to Nick Saban about that and gave Nick Saban his word for an official visit in the fall. So he said Michigan State joined the party late, but he's still going to consider them. It's just too late for them to get an official visit. So if he comes back in the fall with his mother for a game, I think that would be another great sign, of course, and boost Michigan State's chances up. But I think right now they're still kind of one of the teams on the outside of that top group.
Interesting to see Michigan State recruiting against Alabama as often as they are right now. More new territory for Michigan State. Mel Tucker's been on Saban's staff in the past. Mel Tucker using a lot of the strategies And, some of the buzzwords in terms of launching your career and strategies therein. Some of the things Saban has done has made Saban such a great closer. Tucker taking it a step further with some creative ways to appeal to these players in terms of life off the field. But intriguing to watch Michigan State recruit against Alabama as often as it's stacking up right now. At least a half dozen, if not more, that Michigan State's going to get visits, more players that are going to be visiting Michigan State as well as Alabama. What do you think about Michigan State recruiting against the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, you're seeing that more often in this 2023 cycle. With just off the top of my head, you have Okunlola, Caleb Presley, of course, Elliott Washington, who's committed there, who, as a lot of Spartan fans probably saw, he's going to reschedule his official visit. He was going to come to Michigan State this weekend, but he announced that there was unforeseen event in his family. So he was taking the weekend off from visits, and he's going to reschedule. And I heard that will be for next weekend, June 24th. So Michigan State should get the last visit before the dead period in July. And as we've reported before, things are looking good for him.
Which player is that again? Which player is that again? I've forgotten already. Which player was that again?
Elliott Washington.
Okay.
He's committed to Alabama right now, cornerback or safety.
Corner. And he was a surprise visitor to Michigan State for the spring scrimmage. His visit was kind of a pseudo decommitment, but then he remained committed. Michigan State had a chance there for a minute to get a commitment from him, but a lot of other heavyweights started coming after him, so that one became a little more complicated. But he was supposed to come in this weekend, and like Jason said, some family things happened, so he'll be coming in next week. But that's another one Michigan State's recruiting. Alabama, or another player for whom Michigan State is vying with Alabama. And I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead and finish your thought, please.
Well, that was all for Elliott Washington, but then there's Jelani Thurman, the tight end. You had an article on him, and he's going to see Bama this weekend. I think that might be State's highest competition if Bama pushes hard for him, and Auburn's pushing hard for him as well. So Michigan State, Auburn, and I think Bama could really make a move for him. So that'll be an interesting recruitment for sure.
Yeah, that's Jelani Thurman. They call him Tank Thurman, 6'6", 225, tight end, Fairburn, Georgia, Langston Hughes High School. Spoke with his mother last week, had an extensive feature on him via his mother. She's very insightful. She was a big-time basketball player at the University of Georgia and in the WNBA. And she's about 6'6", by the way. And he's an excellent basketball player, too, and he's interested in playing basketball in college. And while he was at Michigan State, he put on the Michigan State basketball jersey for a photo op. He visited Auburn last weekend. I didn't see it. Did you happen to see any photos from the Auburn visit? Did they have him in a basketball uniform too?
Yeah, they did.
Okay, so Bruce Pearl not missing a beat there. He's going to try to help them out. Go ahead.
He had a meeting with Bruce Pearl during that visit too, so I think that's definitely being discussed at Auburn for sure. Okay,
Michigan State definitely has a good track record in terms of football players playing basketball. Last year, Keon Coleman, Malik Carr. This guy, Thurman, at 6'6", physical. Malik Carr was more of a face-up wing basketball player in high school. He put on some of that tight end mass and then went out for Michigan State basketball last year. And with all his thickness, they had him as a low post guy because if you're playing football all year, your face-up skills are going to deteriorate. And most players that have been two-sport athletes that have dabbled in basketball have had to be more of the physical enforcer type of players. Trannon a little bit, not a guy that was going to score a whole lot. And we've seen that with some other guys. Carr, trying to make the transition from a 3 to a banger as a 4 with more mass, wasn't really his game. Thurman is a back-to-the-basket paint banger. He can put on mass as a college football player, and I think he will still have it'll still fit nicely in his game at the college level. I think he could help a program like Michigan State. We've seen walk-ons in the past, like Colby Wallenman from Wyoming, some of those guys, some walk-ons that have been kind of plugger, banger, 4 guys, power forward. Michigan State does not always have a need at that position. Right now, in the last couple of years, Michigan State's been a little bit top-heavy with big men. But there have been other years when they could have used a guy with some muscle. And Thurman, It's not just recruiting banter. He wants to play somewhere, and I think he could help at a program like Michigan State. He could have a role. It's not outlandish to think that. But anyway, as a football player, this guy Thurman that visited 2 weeks ago, I think he's a national top 250 type of talent. He is 4-star, but he's not in the Rivals top 250. I think Rivals has 13 tight ends ranked in the top 250. I think they're undervaluing the tight end position a little bit because it's hard to find bona fide, legitimate tight ends. There's not many high school programs in the country that are developing legitimate tight ends because everybody's running spread. Nobody has tight ends like attached to the offensive line doing old school tight end things. Michigan State wants tight ends who do old school tight end things, and it's a finite resource. It's a scarce resource. Therefore, it's a valuable resource. Thurman can do these things at 225 and growing. And Brendan Parachek from Dexter, Michigan, same thing. 4-star, but he's outside of the top 250. Valuable. I like Parachek a lot. But Thurman, you're seeing, if I could talk about his film a little bit, when you see him, he's got the, one-handed catch on a back shoulder fade, quick acceleration on a crack and go as an attached tight end. Crack, go, accelerates quickly. Quick feet to change direction on a comeback for a middle screen. Gets upfield on a post quickly for a tight end. Can threaten the screen. Threaten the seam. He's got that athletic ability. As a blocker, as an H on an inside zone, takes on a stand-up defensive end, gets low and rocks him. This is not a guy that's like a split end, glorified receiver that has a frame that you're like, okay, we'll turn him into a tight end. No, he's already doing tight end things at a well-coached high school down in Georgia. Thurman also blocking, bends his knees, becomes a low man even at 6'6", strikes with pop, stays on the block with athletic feet to reload, and he's ahead of Malik Carr and Matt Dotson and where they were coming out of high school. Malik Carr was a wide receiver in high school. Matt Dotson was a 4-star, top 250 kid coming out of Cincinnati. Moeller, 6'4", good frame, but he was a split end for Moeller. Didn't do very much, attached to the offensive line, traditional blocking. And Dotson gave it everything he had, but never quite became the all-around receiver and blocker. Battled injuries, did his best. He was a national top 250. This guy, Thurman, not a national top 250, is ahead of Dotson in terms of his film at the same stage. Thurman has tenacity as a blocker, too. He'll cross face, seal his man, get to the linebacker level, pops the inside linebacker, and gets in on a pancake if you watch his film. Stays on the block, sustains the block, does it with force and energy and some nastiness. And he's got some quickness out of that three-point stance as an attached tight end. He's excellent with that. And he's got his top gear speed is just okay. It's not like a guy that can just flat out fly after all of this. Otherwise, he would be a top 100. But I like Thurman a lot. Not surprised at all that Alabama and Auburn are all over him. Now, as far as those visitors on that first weekend, Victor Burley's committed elsewhere, but Madden Sanker, 4-star, top 250 offensive lineman from Douglasville, Georgia. We mentioned Braxton. I'll talk about him a little bit later. We just talked about Thurman, Demetrius Bell, the wide receiver from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. You and I saw him at the camp in Big Rapids, Michigan, just before he committed to Michigan State. Chance Rucker, we talked about him a minute ago. 3-star, used to be a 4-star corner, big corner, Denton, Texas. He's going to be a Spartan. Sham Umarov, offensive lineman, Alpharetta, Georgia. Borderline 4-star quarterback commitment, Bo Edmondson out of Austin, Texas. Lake Travis High School, and Jonathan Slack, commitment from Detroit. Not counting those commitments, before we move on from that visit weekend, what do you think about Sanker and Umarov, those two Georgia offensive linemen who visited, or any of those other guys from that first weekend? Any thoughts you want to mention before we move on to June 10?
Michigan State sits really well with both of those offensive linemen who visited the first weekend. Madden Sanker saw Arkansas, and then he'll see Louisville this weekend, and then Miami. And I think all three of those schools could be big threats for Michigan State, mainly Louisville. He really likes Louisville. The Louisville commitments in their class have done a good job of recruiting him. He's got a lot of strong bonds there with Pierce Clarkson, the quarterback from St. John's Bosco, who split time with Caton Hauser. And there's another St. John Bosco kid committed there. He's a cornerback, Aaron Williams. But they're two of Louisville's top commits. And then they have a third commit from California, who's a 4-star. But they've started off their 2023 class good, and they have some momentum. And Sinker really likes them, and I could see them pulling him away from Michigan State or Arkansas. But Michigan State's right in the thick of things. He really likes Coach Cap. He's visited twice, and Michigan State really likes him too. He's a 2-time state champion wrestler, and with Clay Whedon in the fold and Jonathan Flack in the fold, you could slide. There's scenarios where Clay Whedon could be an interior offensive lineman, and Michigan State can only take one more guard. I don't think I'm just making up those numbers, but I think that they could take 2 guards if Sinker wanted to commit, or maybe Cole Dellinger. And the offensive line spots, I don't think Michigan State fans should be as worried about the guards. I think that they'll figure those out with a couple good spots, and Whedon can slide inside. But Umarov visited Georgia, and then he's seeing LSU this weekend and Tennessee last. I think Michigan State sits good with him too. If Georgia pushes really hard, I think they're the biggest threat. I think he really likes Tennessee as well. Both those recruitments will be tough to tell. Michigan State got the first visit, which could sometimes be a good thing. They get the first at bat in the first impression, or it could be a bad thing by the time they get ready for their decisions, that they might have lost some momentum due to the other visits. So those will both be some good recruitments to follow coming up in July. I think that they both could be summertime decisions.
Michigan State offensive line recruiting, very interesting. We'll get into that a little bit more in a moment. 5-star last weekend, Samson Okunlola. Did a story on him today over at SpartanMag.com. Braintree Thayer Academy, Braintree, Massachusetts. Just a big, strong guy. New England wrestling champion. Just slings people all over the place. Quick feet, just great brute strength. And a guy that's really working on his craft. Put out a Twitter film today. I've been working on his kick step. And just getting better and better with that lateral movement. A guy that used to weigh about 343, he's down in weight to 310, 320, something like that now, and just keeps getting better. And Alabama likes him. He'll be visiting Alabama this weekend, visited Georgia unofficially this week, visited Michigan State last weekend. Big timer, number 13 player in the country. Also last week, Caleb Presley, corner, Seattle, Washington, Rainier Beach High School. Presley, ranked number 67 in the country. Quick, sticky, tenacious, good balance, all over the place. Visited Michigan State. Others that visited, 5 commitments. Jordan Hall, Andrew DePape, who committed several months ago. Kedrick Rizcano, running back, New Caney, Texas, committed a few months ago. Brendan Parachek, Dexter, Michigan, tight end, committed a few months ago. Like him a lot. Clay Whedon just committed a couple days ago. Tampa Carrollwood, we've talked about him a little bit. Kedrick Rizcano, a running back who indicated a few weeks ago that although he's committed to Michigan State, he might look to take some more official visits elsewhere. But you spoke to his father a little bit. Jason had an update over at SpartanMag.com. The latest is he's probably not going to take those visits. Is that correct, Jason? With Kedrick Rizcano, top 250 national 4-star running back from Texas.
Yeah, and I think that he's been solid the whole time, but there was a chance of him taking other visits, and then Michigan State squashed that over the weekend on the official visit, especially with his parents. They knocked out of the park. It was his first time. It was the first time his mom had seen Michigan State. His dad had come up with him in the past and already was sold, and his mom trusted them and was sold too, but she got to see it in person, and that put the squash on any other visits. And some of the people might have saw on SpartanMag.com, I reported that Brendan Parachek didn't want to disclose any names, but he was okay with me sharing that other schools had offered him since he committed to Michigan State. And he shared some of the names, and some really high-level schools had reached out. But that was something he might have considered. But after this visit, he's definitely not. He said that he's 100% a Spartan, and that he wasn't planning on taking any other visits in general, but he completely closed his recruitment now. He's not going to take any phone calls from any other schools. So
I like that kid, Parachek. I like that kid out of Dexter. I like that tight end prospect. Like him. Yeah. And are you revealing which schools those were, or is that kind of hush hush still?
He didn't want to reveal the schools.
Absolutely. Fair enough.
They were definitely high level. And that Michigan State kind of got out ahead of that one before it even advanced, as in, like, he wasn't going to take those visits, and now he's definitely not going to. But he was taking the phone calls at the time.
All right, Caleb Presley, the top 100 corner out of Seattle, visited Michigan State June 10th. I don't think he's got any other visits scheduled at this time, does he? What's any vibes? It's hard to get information with Caleb, if I'm not mistaken. What's the latest with Caleb Presley? You got anything?
Yeah, his visit went extremely well. He doesn't have any other visits planned, and I think that Michigan State really made a strong impression with him. I think that he's starting to speed up his timeline a little bit. Now that after the Michigan State visit came, I don't think he's going to make a decision anytime soon, but he's going to release a top 6, and I think he might take a couple more visits quicker than he originally planned, just to compare them to Michigan State and see what he needs to see. I think that he really likes Michigan State, though. I think I had a great visit with him. His dad was with him again. Him and his father came to the Michigan game last year for an unofficial visit from Seattle, and this was their first official and really their only one planned for the summer, and they loved it again. And his head coach
and they're intrigued by Mel Tucker. Without mincing words, they were intrigued. Mel Tucker doing what he was doing at Michigan State, winning those games, getting to the top 10 last week. They wanted to support him and see what was going on about it. They wanted to see it for themselves. Came to the Michigan game last year, unofficial, paid their own way. This is the type of reach Mel Tucker has with fathers and high school coaches around the country. This kid, top 100 corner, Caleb Presley, sticky, combative type of guy. I watch him on film, and he reminds me of some of the really good corners you've seen at the University of Michigan in recent years. In all due respect, they've had some nice, sticky, handsy, maybe not the biggest, longest, most burly guys, but he reminds me of a Michigan type of corner. Caleb Presley. Go ahead and finish your thought on Presley out of Seattle.
No, I was just going to keep going on how they are very impressed with Mel Tucker, and so is his coach at Seattle Rainier. His head coach is Corey Sampson, and he's a huge fan of Mel Tucker in Michigan State. He hasn't visited with Killop, but he's pushed Michigan State in Killop's direction from the start before they I had a story back when he visited for Michigan State for the Michigan week in unofficial, and the head coach, Corey Sampson, had told Caleb's dad, Clarence Presley, they had an open weekend and that he needed to go check out Michigan State and Mel Tucker and the things that Michigan State was building, and that was right before the Michigan game. And Corey Sampson, the head coach at Seattle Rainier, is just a huge fan of Mel Tucker, and he's had a couple tweets out there, and I've talked to him personally just about Mel Tucker being an African-American head coach and the success that he's having and how that inspires him and that he wants to be a coach at the next level, or even just in high school. Just it's inspiring, and he has the head coach at Rainier, Corey Sampson, has a very strong relationship with Thomas Wilcher, the director of high school player personnel, or director of high school and community outreach, or some title like that for Michigan State, Thomas Wilcher. And he keeps in close contact with the head coach, and the head coach is very impressed with Michigan State. I think that he would be happy with Caleb going to Michigan State in the long run.
Yeah. I think back last year after that visit he had for the Michigan game, you had a story in which his coach said, in so many words, the visit could not have gone better. Last year when he visited Michigan. And these guys that come in to meet Mel Tucker, they're not disappointed. I mean, he's old school and he's new school. He's not like, too buttoned up or anything. I mean, there's a lot of Cleveland in him, and he's learned a lot from Saban and Kirby Smart and all those guys, and people in the NFL, Romeo Crennel, I think, and many others. And Tucker's got all that, and he's got a style about him, and he's a salesman too. I mean, when I talked last year, when you and I went to Big Rapids, and I was talking about him all the way back, he just showed some stuff on day one. The first day he was able to recruit off campus, June 1st, 2021. And the way he held court with some people, and the way recruits reacted to him, the way assistant coaches at other colleges reacted to him. And he was just a boss that day. And there was some bravado too. I mean, he was walking the yard a little bit. He had a presence about him. And we already knew that they were extremely organized and energetic. And that was the first time he was able to really put boots on the ground and go do some things. And that's when I wrote that stuff last year at SpartanMag.com, Underground Bunker message board, saying that Michigan State as a football stock was a buy. Time to buy stock of Michigan State football. That's what I said June 2nd last year. And as we got closer to the season, it might have been after the first game or so, maybe before, because it just continued to roll from there. And I made the statement that he might be the total package. And I'm not one to throw out hyperbole, but you're seeing more of that now with some of the results here in the month of June. And to quote Mark D'Antonio, it's just getting started still. But gosh, they're turning. I've used the race car analogy, racing car, NASCAR, IndyCar type of analogy, saying that it doesn't mean they're winning right now, but in terms of what they're doing is they're running qualifying laps right now. They're out there qualifying on the track, and they're turning laps faster than we've ever seen Michigan State turn laps in the 85 scholarship era. Caleb Presley's recruitment is evidence of that, as are many of these others. All right, one of the other guys that visited that week, June 10th, last weekend, Eno Etta, he's a defensive end from Colleyville, Texas, Covenant Christian Academy. Ranked the number 42 player in Texas, number 239 in the country, number 18 weak side defensive end of the country. Official visit to Michigan State last weekend. I think he's going to be visiting Michigan this weekend and also Stanford June 24th. I was talking to Noah Sprunger about this earlier today. Noah Sprunger doing a great job as an intern for SpartanMag.com. Eno Etta, I look at him as he's a defensive end who's got some physicality to him, maybe could move inside to be a defensive tackle. You might want to expand on that, but visiting Michigan this weekend could turn out to be a Michigan State versus Michigan battle if both continue to go full blast. Have to wait and see what happens with that, but an interesting jump ball between the Spartans, Wolverines, and Stanford for defensive lineman out of Texas, recruiting 2023. Welcome to it. Jason Killip, your thoughts on Eno Etta? What's the latest there?
With Eno Etta coming out of Michigan State's weekend, there wasn't much word about Eno Etta initially, and slowly throughout the week, things started to get more and more optimistic for Michigan State and Eno Etta, and it started to sound like Wednesday evening that he was going to no longer be taking his trip to Michigan over the weekend, but that quickly flipped back to him visiting Michigan and some of the optimism going into Michigan's favor. So that was a quick change overnight based on the information we were getting, and it's been hard to read with which schools he's leaning to. I think even some Stanford insiders have felt confident at times that he would end up out at Stanford. And he really likes the recruitment process and the attention that he's getting right now, I think. And it's working. He's going to Michigan this weekend, and I think that both schools, Michigan and Michigan State, will continue to push really hard for him. And it's going to be a head-to-head battle. He really likes Mel Tucker. He has a great relationship with Andrew DePape, Michigan State's commitment. And, of course, other commitments, Kedrick Reese-Cano and some of the new ones, Chance Rucker, some of the Texas guys, they've been in his ear trying to get him to come to Michigan State. Michigan State really likes him. I know Mel Tucker would love to have out in the class. I've heard that they've sometimes project him as a defensive tackle. I think you were on something there with that, and he might want to be a defensive end, but that's just something that he'll have to face with all the schools that are recruiting him, and that might be more of a selling factor in the end. And academics are another huge factor for him. He's really into computer science, and obviously Stanford and Michigan are two schools that have great programs with that. Michigan State was selling him on their program with that as well. And he said he feels comfortable with the Michigan State computer science program. He could fit in there. When I talked to him about that, he said that they gave him a good presentation. He's gotten it twice, and he's pretty comfortable with the academics at Michigan State if he were to choose Michigan State. And he's comfortable with Brandon Jordan. He didn't train with Brandon Jordan, but he knew who Brandon Jordan was when he was training down in Houston. And he knows that he'd be developed strongly at Michigan State, but he's been quoted saying two of his favorite players are Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo. So that's good indicator for Michigan. And of course, the academics there, he is comfortable with there. So it'll be interesting. I think that he told me he wants to have a decision soon. He wasn't willing to expand on that. So it sounds like probably July when he finishes his Michigan-Stanford visits. But you never know, if he goes up to Michigan this weekend and has a great visit, he could commit to Michigan. He could surprise everyone and have a visit to Michigan and commit to Michigan State right after. He says it'll be soon. I think that it probably will be. It probably will be July is my guess for now, and it's kind of wide open. It's hard to tell. It's hard to get a solid read on this recruitment right now.
Mm-hmm. And I know there's a lot of listeners out there right now that are calling BS on the Michigan academics thing. Hey, Michigan's a great school academically. Everybody knows that. But over the years, hey, I'll just tell it like it is. They'll show all the the business school rankings and how great Michigan is ranked in all these departments. It impresses parents and so forth. And come to Michigan, great academics. Then they get there and they don't let them choose their major, and they make them major in eligibility. And that's just the way it is. And that's what Harbaugh was saying when Harbaugh was head coach at Stanford, when he was making fun of Lloyd Carr's Wolverines, and how he was saying that it wasn't actual academic pursuits there. And that's Harbaugh and Lloyd Carr. I don't know if that had anything to do with the CJ Carr thing last week. Some elephants in the room there. But I got to throw that out there because Michigan flat out does a bait and switch with academics all the damn time. I'm just telling it like it is. Let me know if you disagree with that. We'll debate it a little bit. Now, Stanford, if they're talking academics, that's legit. And, hey, I'll change my mind if I see anything change with those trends. If it changes, I'll stop saying that. In the meantime, it is what it is. But, a guy with very good lateral quickness, good straight line speed, pursuit speed to the sideline for defensive linemen. 6'4", maybe, strong. He looks like he's heavier than 220, listed at 220. And I think he can become a defensive tackle, in my opinion. Those are my notes on that. And then it becomes, known a little bit in the recruiting circles that Michigan State is talking possibly going defensive tackle. Michigan's telling them defensive end, Aiden Hutchinson, Ajabo. Yeah, that's you. Okay. But I looks more like a defensive tackle to me. I think as an athlete, he's like a Will Golston type. He can change direction with speed, track you down. Maybe not the great at like running the hoop and turning the corners. That's what I said about Will Golston also. Very good defensive end at Michigan State a few years ago. Strong, athletic, straight line speed, but not like an edge rush, hip flexibility guy. You can certainly win with guys like that. Golston, playing a 5 technique and a 3-4, still in the NFL, having a great career there, and was an impact player at Michigan State. Now, other defensive linemen, a true defensive tackle. Go ahead.
One thing I was going to just bring up real quick on Addo that I haven't seen discussed a lot is one thing that I've learned through talking with him is one of his trainers is James Reed, who went to Michigan. He's from Saginaw, and he graduated from Michigan. Or no, he went to Michigan and transferred to Iowa State where he graduated, and played in the NFL for a couple of years with the Jets. But that's a key influencer in his recruitment, and that's a Michigan alum. He's from Saginaw, so he's familiar with Michigan and Michigan State from his childhood, and now he's training kids down in Texas. But I'm not sure how big of a Michigan fan that he is at the moment, but I do know that he's a Michigan alum, so that's something to keep an eye on in that recruitment.
That's good. He didn't play for Harbaugh, but he knows how the system works, and that's good that Edo will have some more information to call upon as he makes a very important decision, and we certainly wish him the best. Another offensive or defensive lineman in Texas that visited that weekend, 3-star defensive lineman Terrence Green, 6'5", 260, defensive tackle, true defensive tackle, Cypress Woods, Texas. Official visit to Michigan State, June 10th. Loved it, even loved the weather, according to one of your articles. He said he got back to Texas and he was mad that it was so hot. He liked the air in East Lansing. Official visit this weekend, I think. Actually, June 20th to USC, Oregon, June 27th. Terrence Green, defensive tackle. Your thoughts on him, another Texan visiting last weekend, defensive lineman?
Michigan did a great job with Green on the campus last weekend. I caught up with him, and he gave me some great quotes for an article. I think Michigan State did an awesome job with Green, making a huge impression, and he'll be at USC this weekend, and they'll have a chance to knock him out of the park and take over some momentum. But I think Michigan State has the momentum right now. I think that he'll have a decision in July. And did you say he was going to see Oregon at the end of the month?
I think that's what I had in my notes.
I believe. I'm not sure exactly
June
what his plans are, but
27th, maybe.
Yeah, if he sees Oregon, then they could knock him out of the park as well. They'll have a final at bat to make a pitch to Green. But I think Spartans did an awesome job over the weekend with him and really climbed up his list. His mother read the article and sent me a note just saying that he's a very shy kid, and she was shocked that he talks so much for the article about Michigan State, and that she was reading that and she didn't know that he was going to do any articles, and that she doesn't see him talk about things passionately that much. So that stood out to me as far as how he feels about Michigan State. He definitely seemed passionate about it. He really liked Coach Jordan and Marco Coleman, Brandon Jordan and Coleman. He's very close with Marco Coleman. That's who's mainly recruiting him right now from Michigan State, but Brandon Jordan's involved as well. I think that if USC and Oregon doesn't swing all the momentum their way, I think Michigan State has a lead right now for him coming into a July decision, but those visits will definitely be something to monitor.
Terrence Green, legit defensive tackle, plays a lot of stand-up defensive end at Cypress Woods, but he's a defensive tackle prospect all the way, has freight train strength, good quickness. I compare him a little bit to latter-day Robert Smith. Robert Smith was defensive end at Michigan State in the 1990s, became an NFL defensive tackle. Green, similar in terms of that straight line freight train with the strength, but he's not really an edge bending freak. He's not a defensive end that'll run the hoop, but he's a defensive tackle with some athletic ability. He said in your article that the Michigan State coaches want to just call him a defensive lineman, not necessarily to tackle or an end, and they'll see how it works out. But I think everybody thinks he'll end up a defensive tackle and an athletic one, and he's well proportioned. He's just a quarterback swallower. He swallows quarterbacks. 3-star, a type of guy that if he were playing high school football in the state of Michigan, he'd be a 4-star. But down there in Texas, you can get lost in all the talent that's all over the place. Michigan State's down there recruiting those guys and doing a good job with it. And Terrence Green, Michigan State, right in the middle of it for him. I'll throw out a couple other names. You just pick one or whatever, anything that sticks out to you. You know, when you get into guys like Jaden Bonsu, safety, 4-star, Jersey City, New Jersey, St. Peter's Prep. You know, Ryan Yates, a guy that was on the verge of a Michigan State commitment, and Michigan State kind of cooled a little bit, ended up committing to LSU. Now Michigan State's back in the fold. From Denton, Texas, Geyer High School. Colton Hood, 3-star corner from McDonough, Georgia. King Mack, 3-star safety, Fort Lauderdale, St. Thomas Aquinas. Tight end Vance Bolyard, 3-star tight end from Greensboro, North Carolina. Any one of those guys you want to expand on a little bit before we move on?
I'll do all the safeties just because I can run through them real quick. With King Mack, I think that the visit went well with Michigan State, but I put my future cast to Penn State. He's visiting Penn State over the weekend, and it sounds like Penn State has a lot of momentum and could land him. As for Ryan Yates, he told me that after Michigan State visit, he's officially down to just Michigan State and LSU. That's not much of a surprise, but Cal and Texas Tech were both rumored to be involved. But it's just Michigan State and LSU for Ryan Yates right now. And I think overall on the safety board, they're being a little bit selective. TJ Metcalf, an Alabama safety, was supposed to visit over this upcoming weekend, and the Michigan State staff canceled that visit. I think that they project Elliott Washington as a safety, and they like where things sit with him, but nothing's official there until it's official. And Jaden Bonsu, they really like. I think that he'd be a take no matter what. He's just an elite level target, and he'll be one that will probably extend his recruitment pretty long. I think he visited Miami the first weekend. I know Ohio State sits well with him. I don't remember exactly his visit schedule, but his top schools were Ohio State, Miami, Michigan State, and Alabama. And there might have been a couple other schools in there, but I think that's his top group, and that'll be a competitive one that'll keep going. So I think Michigan State's kind of tightening up the safety board a little bit. They like where they're at with Ryan Yates and Elliott Washington and some of the guys that might even be committed elsewhere. But Yeah, so as far as the safeties, I think King Mack you could see possibly committing to Penn State over the weekend. If not, I think he'll remain on the Michigan State board, of course. They'll keep monitoring that. That'll be another recruitment to keep going if he doesn't commit to Penn State over the weekend. But it sounds like they're done. They're out of the running for TJ Metcalf, the Alabama safety that was supposed to visit over the weekend. And I think that's a pretty big sign as far as how they view recruiting safeties at the moment.
Great info. Also, Ryan Yates was a 4-star recruit a few months ago when Michigan State was on the verge of getting a commitment from him as a corner. At that time, Michigan State also got a commitment from Eddie Pleasant, 3-star defensive back from Tampa, Florida. I looked at the film. I'm not Gil Brandt. I don't know, but my uneducated opinion is that I liked Pleasant better as a corner than Yates. And I wasn't surprised that Michigan State went ahead with Pleasant and kind of pumped the brakes on Yates. That's what it looked like. It's my understanding that Michigan State, I think, might be more interested in Yates now at this point as a safety. And by the way, Ryan Yates has been downgraded to a 3-star corner by Rivals.com. I don't disagree with that. But as a corner, as a safety, a little more intriguing. And, at 6'2", 185, I could see that the reason Michigan State's coming back around, circling back for him. Is that your understanding also that Michigan State might be looking at him more as a safety?
Yeah, I think that they definitely are looking at him as a safety now, and I think he really likes Michigan State. As you said, that there was a time in his recruitment where it sounded like he might commit to Michigan State. Things slowed down for a while, and he went to LSU, and he kept his official visit. So there's serious interest there for him, and I think Michigan State, they sounds like that he moved up the safety when they started looking at him as a safety. He moved up the board, but I'm still not sure if he's a surefire take. I think that he might be, but I'm not sure if I could speak on that all the way as far as how high of a level to get.
Yeah, and you've got Jaden Bonsu out of Jersey City still roaming around in there also as a very interesting safety prospect. All right, let's go to this coming weekend, June 17th. We'll expand on offensive linemen in a moment, but Chase Basantis, top 100 offensive lineman, Ramsey, New Jersey, Don Bosco Prep, and Miles McVay, Peyton Kirkland, Trevor Locke, offensive lineman. We'll talk about them in a minute. But by Job, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, Norman, Oklahoma, community Christian, high school, explosive guy off the edge, ranked number 150 in the country, number 10 at weak side defensive end. What are you hearing about by Job? And let me know if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, if you know.
I think that you're pronouncing it correctly. And for him, he's a really interesting prospect. I think that he's got a lot of potential. The Michigan State staff really likes him, and it's clear they've made him a priority just from how often they've communicated with him. He says he talks to Brandon Jordan and Marco Coleman and Mel Tucker. He'll be making the trip with his trainer from Oklahoma and another kid that works out in his group, Xavier Sims, will be camping at Michigan State on Friday. He's a 4-star 2024 recruit. But Job, he's a very highly recruited kid. He camped at Alabama, and word was that he did really well. Alabama really liked what they saw, and I believe Alabama has 2 defensive end commitments at the moment, but sounds like they would make room for him, and they're really recruiting him. After Michigan State, he'll see Vanderbilt. He really likes Vanderbilt. He has a strong relationship with the coaching staff there. He likes Vanderbilt a lot. And then he'll also be seeing Miami. I know that he really likes Alabama. I think Oklahoma could have a strong pull for him, being the in-state school. But Michigan State's in the thick of things. This will be his first visit to campus, so it's hard to tell how real of a shot they have right now. But if things go well on the visit, of course, I think that they're that top group for sure.
He's from Norman, Oklahoma. Have the Oklahoma Sooners just been slow playing him a little bit? What's going on there?
I'm not exactly sure. I think Oklahoma also has 2 defensive end commits. I can look up their class real quick, but I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that. I don't know how hard Oklahoma's pushing with him.
Pass rushers are so important. I watched a little bit of film on By Job. I want to see more, but with the parts I've seen, he's got that explosiveness. He does look to me like he's got some of that hip flexibility to be a guy that can run the hoop, bend the corner, and that is so valuable. I'm not surprised at all that he camped at Alabama and impressed Alabama. Number 150 in the country, but if he proves to be a guy that can bend the edge and pass and rush the passer with that ability, it makes you more valuable than just number 150 in the country. And if Alabama, with 2 committed defensive ends, decides to go after him, that speaks volumes about what he would mean to a Michigan State recruiting class. So Michigan State's got to impress him this weekend. Like you said, others are still in the fold for him. But by Joe, as a 4-star number 150 in the country, by George. I like that guy. I want to see more, but I like that guy. The linebackers, the twins from Florida, Lake Brantley High School, Altamont Springs. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Altamont Springs. Someone can correct me on that. Michael Harris, Andrew Harris, couple of 3-stars. Andrew Harris, 6'2", 190. Michael Harris, 6 foot 198. Michael Harris shorter, weighs more. Andrew Harris taller, weighs less. The shorter, thicker one ranked number 96 in Florida. The taller, thinner one, number 74 in Florida. I think that the shorter, thicker one, Michael Harris, official visits to Maryland, Pittsburgh, has a midweek to see Michigan. I'm not sure about visits with Andrew Harris, but anything with these guys coming to campus we should know about, or what's the vibe with these guys?
They're definitely, I think the plan for them is definitely to be a package deal. I think they're taking all their visits together, and I think that's just part of the plan for them. They're not going to go and they're not going to separate, I don't believe. They're still new to the game. They're from Jamaica, and I think they came to Florida for the start of high school as a freshman, and were completely learning football. But they visited Maryland and UCF, and then I heard that Michigan visit is canceled. Michigan canceled the visit, but not the kids. But then they'll see Michigan State, and then they'll see Pittsburgh at the end of the month. And I haven't been able to get in great contact with the two twins, but just judging off of those visits, I think Michigan State has a good chance. I think if Michigan State wants both of them, they could round up their linebacker class with them two and Jordan Hall. I think Michigan State, obviously with them being a package deal, they would have to take both of them, and then they would have to probably want to finish their linebacker class with the two of them. I don't think they would go more than 3, but they might. So that'll be something to watch for sure. I don't know if they're that close to committing. They could be. They might not be. They might want to take a 5th official visit in the fall, because this will only be 4. So it's still a close one to read. We'll try to get a visit reaction from them after the weekend to figure out where they're standing more on their recruitment.
All right, wide receiver Paul Billups, Chesapeake, Virginia. Number 10 player in Virginia, 3-star, has an official visit to North Carolina coming on the 24th. Michigan State with a commitment from the wide receiver, Demetrius Bell. Your thoughts on Billups? Michigan State maybe want room for one more wide receiver. He might be the one. What's the word on Billups?
Yeah, I think he could be the one, just with the fact that I know Michigan State had originally planned to have Frederick Moore, a 4-star wide receiver out of Missouri, on campus this weekend for an official visit, but that's no longer happening. Michigan State canceled that visit on their end, so I think that was right around the time Demetrius Bell committed. So I think that the fact that Paul Billups is still visiting is a big sign for how the staff views him. This will be his first official visit, and he'll see North Carolina after Michigan State. I think North Carolina is the biggest competition. He has a Florida State offer, South Carolina, and Penn State. I'm not sure exactly how hard those schools are pushing at the moment. But yeah, he just has 2 visits for June 17th and June 24th. June 17th to Michigan State, June 24th to North Carolina. And I think the Michigan State staff really likes him. The fact that he's still able to come on the official visit. Michigan State's only other wide receiver visiting this month is 4-star wide receiver Micah Tease from Oklahoma, who is a very big-time prospect with a lot of big-time offers. So just reading the tea leaves, I think that the staff likes Billups a lot, especially considering his ranking in the other teams recruiting him. I think that they have him pretty high on the wide receiver board. So that'll be interesting to watch, especially coming out of the weekend with just one other visit to an in-state school that he's seen, or
actually that's not an in-state school. Phillips is from Virginia, but a school that he's seen before in North Carolina. If the visit to Michigan State were to knock him out of the park and Michigan State really wanted him, maybe he cancels that last visit, but we'll have to wait and see.
All right, offensive line. Had a question here from MSU Polo from Rockford, Michigan. He says, thanks, Jim. Good to have you back. I think I speak for many in saying the offensive line coming through this weekend, along with Madden and Sanker and Umarov 2 weeks ago and Okunlola last weekend and Joe Crocker next weekend, represent some very important remaining targets. How would you rank them in order of most likely and least likely to commit? Let me set the table a little bit more for people listening. Michigan State, I think, has 11 offensive line official visitors here in the month of June. 8 of the 11 are 4-star or above. Amazing group of talent that Chris Kapilovic has attracted to campus. Guys that have already visited. Number 15 player in the country, Samson Okunlola from Massachusetts. Madden Sanker, number 97 in the country from Georgia. Sham Umarov is a 4-star by some people, 3-star by Michigan State. Alpharetta, or 3-star by Rivals.com. Alpharetta, Georgia. He's already visited also. This weekend, Chase Besantis, number 47 in the country, high 4-star. Don Bosco Prep, Ramsey, New Jersey. Official visits Michigan State, Texas A&M, Rutgers. Next week, LSU. Miles McVeigh, East St. Louis, Illinois. 6'7", 336. We covered him at the Indianapolis Rivals camp a few weeks ago. Number 102 in the country. Michigan State this weekend is going to Alabama. Official visit October 7th. Missouri, kind of the home state team in there as well. Peyton Kirkland, Orlando, Florida, 6'7", 325, number 226 in the country. Official visit Oklahoma, June 3rd. Florida, June 10th. Michigan State this weekend. Miami, June 20th. Trevor Lauk, Indianapolis, Ron Colley, 6'7", 287, number 229 in the country. Going to Iowa, June 24th. Next week, Joe Crocker, Nashville, Franklin Road High School, 4-star, number 8 player in Tennessee. Official visit to Michigan State next weekend. He visited Mississippi State June 10th, Wisconsin June 3rd, and then also next week, Stanton Ramil, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, 6'7", 305, number 25 from Alabama, number 25 player in Alabama. Watched his film. I mean, he could be a 4-star guy like these others. Visiting Tennessee this weekend, Michigan State next weekend. Just a slew of big-time offensive line prospects. However you want to handle this, you don't have to go over all of them, but in terms of Polo's question, rank them in order, most likely to least likely to commit. We don't have to go over all 11, but if you were to say 1 or 2 or 3 that Michigan State might have the better chance with, and maybe 1 or 2 or 3, 1 or 2 that they have the least chance with, your thoughts on this? Michigan State with an embarrassment of riches of offensive linemen coming to camp thus far. Commitment from Slack out of Detroit and a commitment from Clay Whedon, 4-star out of Tampa. Room for, maybe 3 more big-timers on campus, offensive line. Go ahead, Jason, your thoughts on these guys. Most likely to commit? Do you have a feeling? I certainly don't.
It's hard to have a feeling with so many names on the list. But as far as guys that I think that, as of right now, it changes often. Like I said, with so many guys on the list, it can change very fast, especially with all these visits going on. But guys off that list that I think that Michigan State has a good chance with is Trevor Lauk. I think that he recently got a big bump on Rivals.com to the top 250. He's a kid that visited Michigan State quite a few times as an underclassman and has continued visiting. He'll be on campus this weekend, and then he'll go see Iowa. And it sounds like those are the 2 schools that he's down to. And he'll have his decision in July. I think Michigan State will sit good there. And then I think Joe Crocker's another offensive tackle Michigan State sits really well with. Like you said, he visited Wisconsin, Mississippi State. Wisconsin's a big factor for him, but I think Michigan State could seal the deal on the visit next weekend with a good visit. He really likes Michigan State and Coach Cap. He's really in tune to the other offensive linemen Michigan State are recruiting, and he's keeping a close eye on that as far as recruiting to Michigan State with him before he even gets there. He's just talking about what it'd be like to team up with some of these guys Michigan State's recruiting and talking to them about that. He really likes Michigan State. I think that with a good visit, they could definitely take a lot of momentum from him and get a commitment. And then lastly, I think Michigan State sits well with Chase Bice-Nitis, DeSantis. He'll see LSU, and that'll be a big visit for him. He saw Texas A&M and Rutgers already. His is a big time recruitment, but I could see him having a summer decision, unlike Okunlola and some of the other big time top 50 type of recruits. I could see him being one that decides earlier, which would bode well for Michigan State. And then as far as guys that I think that they have a little less of a chance with, I think Peyton Kirkland will be a really hard land for Michigan State. He visited Florida, Oklahoma, and I'm blanking on Miami. I think I'm blanking on the last school, but I don't think it'll be Michigan State there. He's visiting this weekend. They have a chance to turn things around there. But as of right now, I think that'll be a tough one. I think Stanton Ramil might be a tough one, but they'll have, of course, some good chance to turn that around with the next visit, June 24th. He likes Clemson and Tennessee. If Clemson pushes hard for him, I think that would be tough to beat. There's some other schools involved there. I think he's going to take an official visit to Pittsburgh. But yeah, I think that if I were to just put in a random guess today, I would say Crocker, Basantis, and Lauk as the three most likely offensive linemen on that list.
In terms of pure rankings, I mean, Basantis, number 47 in the country, Don Bosco Prep. Michigan State's recruited in New Jersey here and there, but they've never really gotten a knockout recruit from New Jersey that I can think of. I mean, Terrell Dortch, going back several years, but I'm talking about somebody from New Jersey since Rutgers has been in the Big Ten. And, if the kid commits to Michigan State, he'll be playing back there on a regular basis. But that would be a big one if they just rankings-wise. I've not looked at Basantis' film yet, but Basantis and Okunlola, you get those two guys. I mean, those are needle movers in terms of recruiting rankings, and Okunlola is just a big-time physical specimen. Just amazing.
And with Basantis,
go ahead.
With Basantis, one of the things, because you were talking about New Jersey, is one of the things that he's mentioned that he likes about Michigan State is he played in high school football with Jalen Berger, who went to Wisconsin out of high school and transferred to Michigan State. But they played high school together, and they're actually very close, despite Berger being quite a bit older than him. When he visited Michigan State the last time, that's who he hung out with most of the time and raved about it. He really likes Berger, and they're very good friends. And then he also knows Gino Vandenmark well, 2022 offensive line signee from Jersey from Michigan State. So those are two connections that he has to Michigan State that he brought up to me. And he said that when he was talking to Gino, just being a Jersey kid, that he really bonded well with him and related to him, and just that they told him good things about Coach Cap.
Really amazing that Chris Kapilovic has brought in this level, this many highly ranked offensive linemen from all over the country. Really something. And if Michigan State can get used to something like this every single year, I mean, those are building blocks to have a top 10 program. I mean, they talk about wanting to do it. This is one of the steps to get there. And we'll see how it turns out. But right now, Michigan State has the table set there to make some big noise there. Miles, and these people have, these are guys that Kapilovic has had on campus earlier for unofficial visits. Samson Okunlola, number 15 player in the country, visited back in March. You mentioned Umarov's been here before. Basantis has been here before. Miles McVeigh's been in Michigan State a couple of times. So coming in for official visits, and it's not the first time they've been there. Doing it right, and we'll see how it all winds up. But certainly interesting. Let's switch gears. I got two more questions here for you from the masses. Rob South from Clinton Township says, Jason or Jim, who do you think will end up being the first defensive line or defensive end commitment outside of DePape, who's already committed? And will it start a domino effect of defensive linemen? So defensive linemen now, Michigan State's in on several of them. Who do you suspect odds are might be the next one to commit?
Oh, that's a tough question now with the defensive line board. Obviously, if things were to swing Michigan State's way in the favor of Meta, that could be the next one, just because he sounds like he'll have a decision timeline soon. But we touched on him and not being able to get a good read on where he goes. But he could be the next one if he were to pick Michigan State, being a defensive lineman. I think that it's not entirely out of the equation that Jalen Thompson, although he got that Ohio State offer, he's not taking an official visit there this month. I don't know exactly what to make of that yet, as far as it was a camp offer from Ohio State and how committable it will be in the long run. I think Ohio State obviously was a big impact or a big threat in that recruitment, and it might cause him to wait. But if he were to have, he's going to officially visit Michigan State at the end of June, which is a great thing for Michigan State, but also a visit that he really doesn't need to make. Taking an official visit to the in-state school that he's been to so many times in the past. He's been to Michigan State. I don't even know if he knows how many times he's been to Michigan State, but he's going to take an official visit, so I think that says a lot. It's the last weekend before the dead period, so he'll visit Michigan State, and then he'll cut off communication with the coaches from all schools.
Jaden Thompson, you're talking about Jalen Thompson from Detroit, Cass Tech. He's visiting Michigan State when?
June 24th.
Okay.
For an official visit. It'll be his last official visit of the open period of June.
Yeah, you've got that on the list there over there, the Underground Bunker Message board at SpartanMag.com. You've got the list of all the visitors. There it is right there, Jalen Thompson, a guy that has talked to you and I from the beginning. He's been interested in Michigan State for a long time, got the Ohio State offer, like you said, and that kind of pumped some brakes on things. And he told me a week or two ago that did put Ohio State to the front. But like you said, he's not visiting Ohio State in the meantime. Top 250 national guy, one of the top 5 in the state of Michigan, Detroit, defensive lineman. All these defensive linemen we've been talking about, that one right there in Detroit is an interesting one for Michigan State. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, so I could see a scenario where maybe he just decides finally he's going to pull the trigger. I don't want to speak for him, but I think that there has been times where he was close to doing that in the past. I can't confirm that, but just from his recruitment and the talking with him for almost 2 years at this point, I think that it's something that's crossed his mind before. So maybe an official visit knocks it out of the park. And like I said, it's a visit that he doesn't necessarily need to take. He has a lot of offers. He could have told another school that he wanted to go out and visit them just because he's never been there. But he's not doing that. He's going to come to Michigan State. So I think there's a possibility, there's a world where he could be the next defensive lineman commit.
And the musical chairs factor could creep in there also. You know, if
definitely. And he could be a guy that gets impacted by the musical chairs as well, where maybe a crazy world where Etta swings to Michigan State and Thompson commits to save a spot because Etta's the target that he's aware of from Michigan State. They've been recruiting him for a long time, just almost as long as they've been recruiting Thompson. So, I mean, he could be the guy who sees a different commit and joins the board. But I think Terrence Green, we mentioned him as just an all-around defensive lineman. He could be possibly the next one. It's hard to tell at the moment. Maybe they knock it out of the park with Bijob, but that's more of a long shot for sure. I definitely don't think it would be David Hicks or Jaden Wayne. I'm sure Spartan fans would love that, but that's not going to happen anytime soon, I'm sure. So it's more kind of let the visits play out for these defensive linemen and reevaluate the board. If you don't get any defensive lineman commitments by the end of July, then maybe you expand the board, but maybe you have multiple by the end of July. It's just going to have to see how these visits play out for the defensive linemen.
All right, Jason, one more question from Brian from Flushing, Michigan. He says, who's the recruiting target that nobody's really talking about that is running the strongest with MSU and could see a commitment from that person by the fall? You know, we've gone over so many recruits, and you've handicapped it and laid it all out, and there might not be any, behind the scenes guys like there used to be in the old days of Michigan State recruiting or the recent days. So I'm not sure if anyone would qualify in that category. What are your thoughts about that? Is there someone no one's talking about that could end up being a commitment in that category? Anyone come to mind in that one? If not, you don't need to answer it.
Yeah, so I knew this question was coming, so I was saving Amari Washington. He'll be visiting Michigan State on June 24th, and I think that there's been virtually no buzz on Spartan Mag message board, and partially part of that's my fault, but nobody's talking about Amari Washington. He's a 4-star defensive tackle out of Chandler, Arizona. He'll visit Michigan State June 24th, like I said. But he's originally from the Detroit area, so Michigan State has a strong connection there. of the insiders believe that Ohio State's running strong with him. He visited Oklahoma early in June, but he's a high-level defensive tackle from Chandler, Arizona, an area where Michigan State's been active. Chris Killip has a lot of connections in Arizona, just to get the Spartans foot in the door. And, of course, with him being from Detroit, that's another great connection. And the only other official visit he's taken so far in June is Oklahoma. So that's big for Michigan State to get him on campus, and nobody's really talking about that yet.
Great one. Can you imagine that? A 4-star recruit, number 228 in the country, visited Oklahoma. And, oh, by the way, he's visiting Michigan State June 24th, and we've not been talking about it. That tells you all you need to know about the number of talented players that have come through campus and attracted so much attention. Great answer from Jason Killip, talking about Damari Washington, Chandler, Arizona, top 250 national defensive tackle, very important position. I love it, man. Recruiting's never been like this. I've been covering it since Jim Miller signed back in 1988. And this year's been different, and I think it's going to be that way for the foreseeable future, and this roster is going to get stacked if they keep doing it like this, and that's the idea. Jason Killip's there in the front lines, recovering the recruiting every step of the way at SpartanMag.com. If you're not a SpartanMag.com subscriber, get over there, become one, and follow us in the months and years ahead as we cover this Mel Tucker Michigan State football program and his staff and what they're doing. Got some camps this weekend. Killip's going to be out there checking it out, and we'll continue to have our ear to the ground. Big visit weekend here in the month of June. June has become the recruiting month with official visits nationwide, and Michigan State really hitting it hard. Jason, anything else you want to mention before you go? Hey, Cole Dellinger, the offensive lineman from Clarkston, we didn't mention him either. He's not nailed down any official visits in June, has he? Top 250 national guy. Is that his name?
I think he was going to see LSU and Purdue this month, but he told me that his dad's stationed in the military, so he's waiting till his father gets home to visit Michigan State. Just reading the tea leaves on that, I think that says a lot because he has a brother at LSU, as Garrett Delling, the high-level recruit out of Michigan earlier in the 2022 or 2021 cycle. But for him just to say that he wants his dad to be at the Michigan State visit, but he's going to officially visit LSU where his brother's at this month is interesting. I would think that maybe he would save that. Maybe he'll take an unofficial to LSU with his father when he comes back. But I think that's an interesting tea leaf. I think that he's a great player Michigan State really likes, but he might not have a spot forever, depending on how the offensive line recruiting board plays out. We talked about it. I think Chris Killip is really going with a large recruiting board with quite a few takes on the board. So it's kind of just recruit and see who you can land off that board with a lot of guys being takes. So they'll have to see how it all plays out. If he wants to visit Michigan State in the fall, maybe he makes a commitment beforehand. Maybe he doesn't. If he waits out that long, he might not have a spot with Michigan State, but maybe he does. So that'll be one to continue to monitor for sure. I think Michigan State sits really well. I don't think it's totally out of the equation that he visits Purdue and LSU this month and makes a decision after that and saves his official visit to Michigan State for later in the process. I don't think that's too far-fetched, but we'll have to see how that continues.
All right, Jason, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for all your efforts and your knowledge and your insight. Really appreciate all the work you do at SpartanMag.com. All these Michigan State fans out here coast to coast, they agree with me on that. Great job, Jason. Thanks for everything. Have a great evening. Thanks for all your time.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, there he goes. Jason Killip, one of the great ones, doing a great job for us. Let's go over here to the comments and reactions area. First five guys in. You got Matthew Johnson. Mentioned him earlier. He was the first guy in. Brad Fashenko from Austin, Texas. Make the best of what's still around out of Chicago. He's checking in. I don't know who that is. That's a new one. John Elke, good to be here. Go Green, he says. Matthew Johnson saying, start me on one of the wings. Okay, he wants to be in the starting lineup. James Bannon out of Sterling Heights. He's in the house. So we got Matthew Johnson at a wing. Got James Bannon running the point right now. And John Elke, he's a power forward. Sounds like a power forward. He's not been in the starting lineup before, but he is tonight. And what's the best still around? I don't know who that is, but we're going to put him at center. And Brad Fashenko, he's the other wing. And that starting lineup, a little different today. Different set of people there in the starting lineup. We appreciate those guys checking in early. Caleb Walburn checking in from Campbell, Kentucky. Tyrus Thomas. When is Michigan State Media Day? Michigan State Football Media Day? That's August, I think. That'll be in August. Big Ten Media Day is in July, to quote George Kell. July. Those of you that know who George Kell is. July, WDIV. Don't let me get into my George Kell impersonation. Conan Dyke sent me the information a couple days ago. Let's see what we got here. Tuesday and Wednesday, July 26th and 27th is Big Ten Media Days. And good for the Big Ten finally moving Media Days to the middle of the week, Tuesday and Wednesday. I used to hate it when they'd have Big Ten Media Days on a Friday or a Monday. Don't mess with my weekend. We don't have many good weather, warm weather weekends in the state of Michigan. And to take one in July and make us go to Chicago, not make us, but going there and having to travel on a Sunday to break up a weekend in the Midwest in July, wrong, Big Ten. Wrong. And in recent years, they had it like on Thursday, Friday. Friday is news dump day. That's when public relations firms dump bad news on a Friday because it's not going to get as much buzz in the talk shows and news cycle and all those things. Why would you have a press conference, Big Ten, on a Friday? But they did. And you know what? Last year, when they sent out their little emails and they asked for feedback, I gave them feedback. I said, Big Ten, you are stupid. I said, Big
Call
Ten.
From.
Wrong.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail.
All right, that's Greg from Minneapolis. Hey, Greg, turn down your laptop, please.
What?
Turn down your laptop, please. You're on the air, Greg. Hold on a second. But I told the Big Ten.
Okay, thank you.
I told the Big Ten to, in the feedback, I said that they were stupid to do it on a Friday. That's a news dump day. And I said, do it on a Tuesday, Wednesday, so that we can enjoy our Midwestern weekends. And by golly, I don't know if they listen to me, but it's on a Tuesday, Wednesday this year, Wednesday, Thursday.
Will do. Will do.
Big Ten. All right.
Thank you.
Uh-oh, we lost him. Darn it. Sorry about that. Call back. I'm going to send him that was a gentleman from Minneapolis that joined us a couple weeks ago. And it was a colorful caller. I'm inviting him to call back, and we'll see if we get him on here. We don't even have the number up, and he called in, but maybe we'll get him in a moment. Sorry I went on that tangent. Steve Bregman, Cool Breezes from SpartanMag checking in. That's his name over at SpartanMag.com. And if you're not a subscriber to SpartanMag.com, what are you waiting for? Get over there, become a member, become a Magger, and get on with it and get all this information about recruiting and all this other stuff. Hayden Roberts asking if there's a commitment tonight. Not that I know of. Rob South, we had your question earlier. Thanks for joining. Let's go to Greg in Minneapolis.
Call from.
Colorful caller.
To accept, press 1. To send a voice.
All right, Greg, you are on the air. Can you turn down your laptop, please?
Okay, Tom.
Turn that thing
I
down.
made a request to you about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago.
Now you're on the air.
I want an email address or send me a text because you have my number.
Yeah.
You turn down your laptop. Okay, Tom. I'll move out of this laptop. I asked you to send me a text or respond to my email so that I could send you a check.
Yes. Appreciate that.
Okay, you haven't done it.
I have not done it. I forgot, my man.
Well, don't forget.
Don't forget. I won't. I'm going to try to remember this time.
I just have to be a hemorrhoid.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. I got to make a note of it. If I can write on something around here. I got to text Greg in Minneapolis, my contact info. There, I made a note. I don't know if I'll be able to read it later, but I appreciate your sentiments. I appreciate your support. Do you have any questions or a comment tonight before I move on and get to the mailbag, which we still have 50 questions?
I really don't have a lot to say tonight, except I guess I am extremely impressed with what is happening on the recruiting picture, whatever you want to call it. And I also appreciated what you and Jason had to say tonight about everything that's going on.
Wow.
So,
appreciate it, Greg. I know you're from the old school, and recruiting didn't get a lot of coverage back in your day. You come from the 60s, if I'm not mistaken, from the national championship era.
Yeah, you're right.
But you've got your...
I'm in the Bubba Smith, Gene Washington era. Before you were born.
Love it. And you've got your ear to the ground on the current trends for Michigan State recruiting, and it's certainly inspiring, I think, for Michigan State fans to see Michigan State doing it this way. And I'll say something that I said on the Stout show today, the radio show here in the Lansing area, and I posted it on the message board earlier today. A lot of people are saying, yeah, Michigan State could have always recruited like this. Why didn't they always recruit like this? Let me tell you how it is. Michigan State is out there recruiting 4-star guys from Texas, Georgia, Florida, Arizona, California, New Jersey, all over the place. And I'm not saying all of them are in this category, but if Michigan State wanted to recruit this caliber of player in the past and get official visits from 25 to 30 national top 250 kids, in order to recruit like that just a few years ago, you would have had to cheat to get those guys. You would have to pay them. I'm just saying it the way it is. If you go down,
absolutely.
But now there is no cheating with name, image, and likeness. I mean, there's some ways that you can and can't go about doing name, image, and likeness. You can't say, hey, you come here, you'll guarantee to get this type of money. Schools are probably doing that, but for the most part, that cheating thing has leveled the playing field right now. And Michigan State's all locked and loaded, ready to go after it. And Michigan State is going after these guys that in the past would not have been available to them unless they wanted to cheat. D'Antonio wasn't going to play that. Now things have changed, and Michigan State's got an operation in a different type of way, and they are getting visits. In terms of attracting visits, they're doing it on a level, I mean, similar to Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. I can't believe I'm saying that, but that's what's going on this year. Doesn't mean it's going to be like that every year. Doesn't mean they're going to get their share. They'll get their share. Doesn't mean they'll recruit like those guys. Doesn't mean they're going to have teams like that, but it's a stair step toward that goal. And they're turning laps, man. It's interesting. Big Ten better watch out. You remember it back in the 60s when Michigan State was the powerhouse. The powerhouse. Yeah. I never expected, never even thought it was possible. Never. That would be like, it's for other people. But I'm telling you, Greg, for the first time in my professional life covering Michigan State, I'm no longer closing the door on that possibility. Maybe they can be like Clemson.
NIL,
I don't know.
Sorry to interrupt you. NIL
Go ahead, Greg.
has allowed Michigan State to get on the playing field because their habit in the past, which was absolutely correct, we will not cheat. We will not pay. NIL has now allowed us to pay.
Watch out.
Thank you very much to the Matt Ishtabas and a few others that are helping.
And with the and with the changes, I mean, Mel Tucker is adaptable. He's a visionary. He's a salesperson. He's got the resume. He's old school and he's new school. For these changes, right guy, right place, right time. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's scary for the rest of the Big Ten. That's what they better be scared. I don't want to say that. I don't want to say they better be scared. I'm saying Michigan State is revving their engine right now, and we'll see where it goes from here. That's interesting.
Well, and I will also say that I hope, and I think Izzo will be able to come and deal with the NIL also. So,
all right.
So that we can get the basketball program to be able to get the top recruits that they deserve, and so they don't get beat up by Kentucky and
Kentucky's
North Carolina and Duke with the under the board stuff.
Well, Kentucky and North Carolina are going to be hard to contend with in the name, image, and likeness category. But you can still beat them. I mean, he can still beat them, especially in basketball. I mean, we'll see what Villanova can do now. They've always kind of done it in a different way. But anyway, Greg, I appreciate it. We're going to move on. Thanks for calling the show. Appreciate it, my man.
You take care. Have a good one, Jim.
Thank you. Sparty says, I'd do anything for Miracle David Hicks, Michigan State commitment. It's going to go on for a few more months. Gordon Tanona's here. Brian Cullen says, how many cornerbacks? Looks like we're nearing the, I don't know how many cornerbacks. I'm guessing, they've got 2 already. Maybe one more, a couple, 1 or 2 that might be in the safety category, but it's filling up. Gordon Tanona, is Whedon the highest rated commitment so far? Go over to SpartanMag.com. You're a subscriber. You can check it out over there. He might be. But it's not going to remain that way. Because others are coming in. Let's see. Clay Whedon, I'll just offensive tackle from Tampa, number 128 in the country. I'd say right now he is the highest rated off the top of my head of the commitments Michigan State has so far. And Brian Cullen continuing his thought about cornerback recruiting. Is Michigan State nearing the goal with room for Presley? I would say yes. And I like Presley. Sticky guy from Seattle, top 100. Taylor Smith, with this many visits early, what are your thoughts on how this affects big weekend visits later in the year? Now's the big weekends right now. If they, the big weekends are no longer December, no longer in the fall. It's June, and players make their decisions later. There still will be some visits in the fall, I would imagine, but they won't be bigger weekends than this. June has become the recruiting month. Tim D says, a lot of Spartan fans here in Ontario. I'll be in Ontario late Friday night and Saturday, and then heading back out. Spartoons89 says, hello, Comp. Thanks for keeping us updated. Thank you for joining in. MSU Hunter Spartan checking in from Wisconsin. MSU Hunter Spartan. Jeremy Root says, greetings from sunny DeLand, Florida. Is it DeLand or DeLand? Not sure. Spartan MD says, ladies and gentlemen. That's all he says. Great to hear JC and JK listening. Sunset poolside from balmy West Bloomfield. I don't think balmy is the right word in West Bloomfield tonight. It's hot. Mid-80s, right? That's hot for us. Yesterday, 95 in East Lansing. Record high 95. It had never been 95 before on June 15th. It was yesterday. And it was a muggy 95. I liked it. Keith Tunstall says, any news about Edda? Did he verbally commit to Michigan? Just Jason Killip was on with us a minute ago and gave us the rundown on all those guys. If you're new to the program tonight, go back and listen to it. You'll find it. Caleb Welburn says, any news about Jalen Thompson? We talked about him also, defensive lineman from Cass Tech. Visiting next week, not going to visit Ohio State. And the commitment meter might have been going down a little bit. And I think Jason and I are kind of creeping it back up now for that Detroit Cass Tech defensive lineman, national top 250. Tim Hughes says, checking in from Traverse City. Says, Tuck's on fire. DePape and Hall are both top 200 commits for 2023. Yes, you are right. Terrence says, good evening, Spartan Nation. Good evening, Terrence. Thanks for joining us. Samuel De Jesus. Sam from Hawaii, but I live in Ohio, he says. Jim, who else you think will commit? I'll go with what Jason said about Washington next week. Defensive tackle from Arizona. Mark me down for that guy. Mike Elsa, spot on, Jim. I think you're referring to my little soliloquy about bait and switch recruiting for Michigan in terms of academics. Eric Iverson says, have you heard any inside info on how Jack Stone is looking? Will he be ready to be a starter? No, I have not. He's the kicker from Texas, true freshman. They need him to do well. I asked Mel Tucker about the kicking situation after the spring scrimmage, and he said it'll be fine. I don't know if he actually believes that, but that's what he wanted out there. So that was the quote. Have to say, if I'm Michigan State, I'm a little concerned about that. MSU Hunter Spartan says, Spartan basketball schedule came out today. Spartans are 20-20 in Big Ten the last 2 seasons. Don't see much change this year. MSU will have strong backcourt, but will get dominated in the paint. Thank you for contributing, MSU Spartan. Hunter, I respect your opinion. Being dominated in the paint, Michigan State will be weaker in the paint this year. With Bingham gone, you have Jackson Kohler coming in as a talented freshman. But the difference is, I don't think the Big Ten will be as firm and forceful in the paint offensively this year. You have Coburn moving on. You still have some size there at Purdue. And you still have Dickinson at Michigan. Those guys are good. No question about that. Ohio State losing some people. Make a good point, though. Expecting another 500 year in the Big Ten. He is. Ben Chi says, what are your expectations for Lepo? Talking about Ashton Lepo. Offensive lineman, going to be a freshman from West Michigan. Is he from Holland or Grand Haven? Grand Haven, I think. Athlete, just keeps getting taller and taller. Michigan State got in on him as a 2-star. And that was stock on the rise when they got in on him. I liked his film. I asked Kapilovic about him a couple weeks ago. Probably a guy that's going to redshirt. Going to have to take his time, but they like his frame. I got to put those quotes together and put that story together here soon. Almost through all these. Looks like we had very few comments tonight. Just a lot of people listening to the recruiting talk, I'm guessing. Hayden Roberts says, thoughts on Quavaris Crouch? Nothing's been said for a while. Is he back? The answer is no. I don't think so. No. It's my understanding he's gone. Entered the portal, and I think that's that. I don't know if he's landed anywhere. I don't know if academically he can transfer anywhere, but no, I don't expect him to be part of the situation this fall. That's part of the reason Michigan State went out and got 2 transfers out of the portal in the linebacker position. I think Michigan State will be fine there. Gary Lewis says, congratulations on historic recruiting wins. I started bumping Tucker originally because of Hauser, Bernard, Winman, but now name, image, and likeness money gives State a puncher's chance. Pac fan rooting for Sparty. Thank you, Gary Lewis, Pac-10, Pac-12 fan, as a Michigan State fan. D-Land, Florida, thank you. Hey, from Long Island City, New York, in the borough of Queens. Gary Lewis having a good night tonight. Glad to have him here. Brett Barr checking in from Yale, Michigan. Gary Lewis hearing that Amir Speed is an assassin. Amir Speed is fast. He's big. He's tall. He covers ground. Kazoo Green says, had to work late. Totally missed that this was on the schedule with so much going on. I'm sure I missed a lot. No worries, Kazoo Green, right here on YouTube. Just go back to the beginning and you can rewatch it again. Let's go over here to the mailbag and we'll wrap this thing up. Yeah, Kazoo Green, we did talk about the uncommitted offensive lineman. Go back there. We had Jason Killip on for about an hour and 10 minutes, and we covered everything. I think you'll like it. Question number 3, Joe from Northville. Who is your favorite of the current verbal commitments from the class of 2023? I mentioned, I'm still developing that opinion a little bit. Don't sleep on Brett Parachek, the tight end. Tight end's going to be used a lot in this offense in the future, and I like him. Let me go to my commitment analysis 2023. Get my notes on Parachek. From Dexter, Michigan, 6'6", 230. I got to say, if he were committed to some other schools, he might be in that top 250. I just got to say it. Just got to say it. I like him. 6'6", 230. He's got a frame to build on. Gets that three-point stance, and he's comfortable and flexible, and he's got a flat back, fires off that three-point stance. Gets up to speed quickly. Threatens the seam up to speed quickly. Good, quick, smooth hips on the short out cut. Short out cut to the flat. Smooth hips at 6'6". Quick now. Good leaper. When you watch his basketball film, Parachek at 6'6", quick leaper. Like it. And after the catch, Dexter High School's got a little bit of make you miss to him. I'm not saying he's going to get out there and be Agim Shabai making people miss. I'm not saying he's going to be knocking people over like Bob Organ, but a little bit of make you miss at the high school level. Not a bad thing to take to the college level. Talking about Brennan Parachek, 4-star tight end. Dexter, Michigan, committed to the Spartans several months ago. Defensive film on defense. A defensive end, he's got a quick takeoff. Looking at him, a defensive end, I'm thinking, this guy could have been like a MAC defensive end, Mid-America Conference. I started watching some more defensive film. No, I think he could play defensive end in the Big Ten. Maybe not for the best teams of the Big Ten, but he could go to, Illinois, Northwestern, Rutgers. He could play defensive end, but he's a tight end for Michigan State. Quick reaction and change of direction to pounce on a fumble. Not the easiest thing to do. But when the fumble presented itself, he looked like an athlete pouncing on it. He didn't come apart and flail and all this stuff. He was on it right now. What I'm getting at, basketball blocking shots, on film, punting the ball at 6'6", Brennan Parachek. I mean, he's got him on film like a 70-yard punt at one time. Blocking shots in basketball, defensive end, recovering fumbles, punt, defensive end, tight end. Big-time athlete, with good speed. When people say great athlete, people think that means great running speed. He's got good speed, but all the other things, athlete. As a defensive end, he gets low, gets into the blocker, and powers up on the guy, rolling his hips. I'll bet that he's really good with the power clean in the weight room, the way he gets low and moves people when he's a defensive end. And then, on offense, they're running delay, like tunnel screens to him, jailbreaks, delay, and he's doing skill things there. One time they ran that jailbreak tunnel screen inside the 5-yard line, threw it high to him, went up there and grabbed it. For a minute there, I thought he was doing a little bit too much body catching, but as you watch more film, he does plenty of work with the hands. There's not a lot of blocking reps for him on his highlight film. I'll be looking for more in the fall. But Parachek, there's a couple of them. There's one or two. I think there's two in his huddle film that I saw from last year where there's blocking, and had a really nice down block in one occasion where he got into an inside linebacker and put a real good jolt on him, and kept his heels on the ground, and it looks like he's well coached there too. Parachek, 4-star tight end. Don't sleep on him. Dexter High School. A lot of times when a guy commits, people kind of forget about him and they're not as excited. Be excited about that guy. Good, solid tight end. As always, you have to stay healthy in the college ranks. And tight ends, a lot of times I've seen some good ones that haven't panned out for whatever reason, that look good on film and have all the measurables, and they get to school and it just doesn't work. But I like Parachek. And Michigan State's going to use tight ends. That's what they want to do, and I like this guy. Maybe I'll be right about that one. But also, as far as the other ones, Jalen Braxton, don't sleep on him either. National top 250. Why would you sleep on a national top 250 guy? But Michigan State's got so many of these national top 250 guys that sometimes, believe it or not, you could forget about somebody. I mean, Michigan State had a lot of commitments last week, and in some years, a guy like Jalen Braxton would be the cherry on top for a recruiting class. There have been many years that if you'd have gotten a guy like Jalen Braxton, 4-star out of Texas, actually, he's not in the top 250. He's number 56 in Texas. That's my point. 6-foot corner. I think Jalen Braxton is a top 250 type of guy, top 200 guy. He's not ranked there. I think he could be, should be. Let's take a look at him here. Let me get me out of the way. Let me put a little pause on that one. Let's see. You asked for it, so we're going to talk about some of these guys a little bit. Does that do it? There we go. All right. Where's he at? He's over here on this side of the field. Coming up and blowing up a blocker, reading that bubble. What just happened? Watch him read this bubble and take on this blocker. And that blocker's a big guy coming in from the slot. Boom! Knocks that guy back, gets the tackle, whips him down, little side suplex. 6 feet. He's got some of that pop like Charles Brantley, but Charles Brantley's doing it at 5'10", 155. This guy's doing it at about 6 feet, 170. Jalen Braxton, 4-star. I think he's a top 200 national guy from Frisco, Texas. Lone Star High School, committed to Michigan State last week. There were a lot of commitments. Don't sleep on this guy. You know, a lot of times you lose focus on a guy because there was so much activity going on. This guy's good. It's a prospect. You see him out here as a wide receiver. He's going to come in motion, get a little pop. Pop, sweep. Watch the speed right here. Speed. That's what I'm talking about. Now, hold on a second. What am I... there we go. What are we doing here? I lost him. Where is he? Oh, he's breaking up another bubble, right? He's going to be top of the screen. Yep, up there, creeping around. Top of the screen corner. You know, he's not blitzing on this. He's reading bubble. And he's sprinting toward it right now. That's film study. And they have great coaching in Texas. They spend time in the film room. He saw this at pre-snap. He's blowing up the bubble to his side. He's going to take on a blocker again. Didn't even have to take on a blocker because he read it so well. Now he's in space and levels him for good measure. Jalen Braxton, ladies and gentlemen. Red zone. What do we have here? Playing some zone. Now it's some more IQ here. Might have gotten the clue on this with film work also. Inside the 10-yard line, playing zone. His receiver is clearing. He passes him off to the safety. He sees that the interior guy, he's got to get back to the flat. He knows that the underneath guy's got flat coverage. And he's just back there. The quarterback thinks this guy's coming open. No, because Braxton's too smart for that. He's going to go up and high point this thing. Snag, interception. Athleticism. Jalen Braxton pointing out, trying to use some blockers. Smart. Physical. Athletic. One more time. Let's rewind this thing. Again, he's in zone, and he knows that the underneath man is going to cover the flat. He's pointing stuff out, pointing. Reads the quarterback, gets back to the ball. This is big time, people. This is big time. All right, what was this one now? We could do more, but maybe I better shut it down. What do we have over here? Look at that break on the ball. Again, he's taking a zone drop with a cushion. Is that cover 4 they're doing there? Watch this. Now watch the change of direction when he breaks on the ball. Back pedal. Now! That's sticky. Quarterback thinks it's safe over there? I don't think so. Now here he is again on the drop. Zone drop. Cover 3. Drop. Change direction. Quarterback makes a mistake, and he's on it. Let's say that again. Jalen Braxton, Frisco, Texas. All right, what's the quarterback looking at here? I think number 2, number 1 and number 2 down here in the same area. Somebody messed up. Quarterback's throwing to green space, and there's nobody there. But my guy Braxton, he's got quick enough feet to react to it, step up and pluck it, capitalizing on the mistake. Now he just wants to outrun everybody and gets tripped up. He's learning. He gets so many interceptions that he's learning whether or not to use his blockers coming back. Punt return. Let's do it. Prime time. Punt return. Let's do it. Jalen Braxton. Little move. Cut. Prime time. Speed. Cut. Speed. Prime time. That punter can run. Is that the punter? He's going to knock him out. Oh. What's this? Well, maybe we'll look at more next week. Anyway, that's my guy, Jalen Braxton. The question was, what was the question? I got to find where I was. Joe in Northville says, who's your favorite of the current verbal commitments for the 2023 class? I think I'm going to say Jalen Braxton. Let me see. Let me go back over the whole list here. The 11 commitments. Let me go over the list here. Just want to make sure. Commitments. DePape has some ability. Riscano, I've not really looked at Riscano, the running back film, as much. I like Belichick at tight end. Edmonton at quarterback. Eddie Pleasant, I liked him. I think he's undervalued as a corner. I think he's a 4-star guy, and he's listed as a 3-star. Chance Rucker was a 4-star. Big corner. Does a lot of good things. I like Rucker and Braxton a lot, both of them. Demetrius Bell, 4-star receiver. Jordan Hall, 4-star linebacker. Clay Whedon, 4-star offensive lineman. Yes, he looks like a 4-star. So I like Whedon. I like Braxton. I still have to look at Riscano's film. But Braxton is in my top 3 at least. Okay? Be warned. All right, I lost my place again. Here we go. Question number 4, Matt from Ravenna, Michigan. Jim, how do you see the starting basketball lineup shaping up for next year? Do you think Malik Hall could play the 3 with Hauser at the 4? Izzo's talked about that a little bit, and they've practiced that, but I just see Malik Hall getting bigger and stronger and heavier, and I'm just not sure he can play defense on a 3. They've looked at it before. And offensively, when you're a 4, you're usually guarded by a slower guy, and you've got more chances to get into your offense. And if Hall is a 3, then he'll be guarded by a quicker guy, and I think it's tougher. Like when Miles Bridges was a 3, all of a sudden he was going against better defenders, and he didn't get loose as much. If Malik Hall has to play the 3, I think his productivity will sink. And on defense, his effectiveness will sink. If he's playing the 3, God bless him, I just don't think it's good for the team. He can do it, but he's not going to do it at a plus level. I think he's a 4. And he's a good 4. Starting lineup, Tyson Walker, Hogarth in the backcourt with Jaden Akins, and probably Malik Hall and Joey Hauser to start. That's a couple of power forwards. That's not ideal, but that's what it looks like to me. By the end of the year, could Jackson Kohler become a starter? Possibly. He's got to show he can play with toughness. But I don't think Hall can play at the 3. He could, but it's not ideal. I asked Izzo about this at the Detroit Economic Club 3 weeks ago in Detroit. I said, what about Jason Whitens? He walked on, played at Western Michigan, 6'5", 210, senior, Upper Peninsula, Powers North Central, UP Power, UP Power, UP Power. If you've been to the state playoffs, you know when Powers North Central's doing their thing. I saw him last year, first day of practice. I'm like, who's this walk-on transfer kid from Western Michigan? He's out there running around, 6'5", 210. I look at his stats. The year before at Western Michigan University, he averaged 23 minutes a game, 5.4 points, 3.5 rebounds. I'm watching him. This guy's played before at Western. Not that Western was great or anything, but Whitens at 6'5", he's like a 6'5" Tim Bograkis. You remember Bograkis had some toughness to him, some strength to him at about 6 feet, 6'1". Whitens is like that at 6'5". I'm watching him in practice. I'm like, that dude's not bad. I go as far as to say he's better than the Keebler dude out of Okemos that played as a walk-on in the Final Four run after Kalen Lucas got injured in 2010. I'm not saying Whitens is an impact guy, but he can come in and play 10 minutes and not kill you on defense. I asked Izzo about it in Detroit 3 weeks ago. I'm like, what about Whitens? Can that guy? I said, what about Whitens? And he said, Whitens. He said, yeah, he can help. So Whitens was supposed to play last year, blew out his knee in the exhibition, coming back as a sixth-year guy, COVID sixth-year guy. Now he's got knee rehab. I don't know how that's going this summer. I don't know what he'll look like by the time September, October rolls around. But the Jason Whitens I saw the first practice of the year, I think can play defense in the Big Ten. I'm not saying for 40 minutes a game, but he can do it a little bit. Don't sleep on the possibility that if they get enough offense from other guys, that he might be able to do something. help a little bit. And they've had walk-ons help in the past. Of course, Kenny Goins became a superstar. I'm not saying he's going to become like that, but they've not had many walk-ons at the 3. Bograkis was a walk-on. Anyway, question number 5, WM Spartan from Royal Oak, Michigan says, can you break down each June commitments film? Not today. I'd like to. We'll get into it at some point, but not today. Ty Garland, card-carrying Spartan dog, former Michigan State football player from Oak Park, Illinois, now originally from New Jersey, says, hey, Jim, I'm quite pleased with the linebacker depth going into the fall. However, I'm curious how the offense will utilize our tight ends this season, especially with the transfer Barker coming from Illinois, plus Hunt and Carr. Good points. I'm curious about tight ends, too. I talked to Gilmore, the tight ends coach, a couple weeks ago, and he's excited about this guy, Daniel Barker. Transfer from Illinois, 6'4", 250, senior. 64 career catches for the Illini, 11 touchdowns, including one that beat the Spartans back in 2019. He's a plug-and-play tight end. He's going to help right away. He's got the size. He's got hands. He's well-rounded. He'll be able to be an every down guy that can block, fake stalk, go, reliable. Barker's going to help. Malik Carr needs to get better with blocking. Had more of an impact at the end of last season. That was positive. Tyler Hunt, 6'3", 235, former punter, walk-on, functional. Had to start a couple years ago. Not a bad guy to have at number 3. I'm not sure they've got like the game-breaking tight end they want to have. Connor Hayward was a little bit of that last year. But you're asking how they're going to use him. They're going to use him similar to last year. Connor Hayward, they don't have that guy. But Harold Joyner, the running back, when he walks in a room, he does not look like a running back. He looks like a big slot receiver. Harold Joyner, you could get creative with him, I think. Last year, the tight end position, Connor Hayward, 35 catches. Tyler Hunt, 14 catches. Malik Carr, 8 catches. That's a total of 57 catches from the tight ends last year. That's a lot. Those are good numbers. And I think the tight ends will create similar figures this year. There might not be one guy with 35, but Barker's going to be effective. Carr's going to be a little better. Hunt's going to be serviceable. Ty Garland also says, could this be the year we see Cade McDonald in the mix at wide receiver? Cade McDonald from suburban Chicago, former high school teammate of Jaden Reed and Peyton Thorne, has looked good. In bit rolls and in practice, had a nice diving catch in the spring scrimmage. He's got ability. He's got hands. He's scrappy. He's good. Peyton Thorne likes him. There have been times when Cade McDonald has gotten into the playing group a little bit. He got in the playing group a little bit when D'Antonio was here in 2019. A little bit during the COVID year. Not as much last year. But it looks to me like he might be a little bit ahead of Terry Lockett. You have Jeremy Bernard coming in as a 4-star guy who's going to help. Christian Fitzpatrick is capable as a different body type, a big wide receiver. But Cade McDonald's right in there, and he's got scholarship talent. Could he break through? I mean, you have to get in line and wait. You have Trey Mosley, you have Jaden Reed, you've got Fitzpatrick, Jeremy Bernard. They don't usually play more than 3 or 4 wide receivers. Am I forgetting anybody? McDonald's capable, but I'm not sure it's any easier to get on the field this year than it was last year. Jay Bannon from Sterling Heights, Michigan. He was one of the first 5 in the lineup today. He says, how much better will the back 5 play in the defensive backfield against the pass compared to last year? He says, I believe the rush will also help with this stat. Good question. Pass rush was pretty good last year, led the Big Ten in sacks. Defensive coordinator Scotty Hazelton thinks that the pass rush could and should be better. He wants it more consistent every single down rather than just sack or famine. A lot of it was sack or famine. And Michigan State had such trouble on 3rd down, couldn't get off the field, and that enabled the opponent to have so many pass attempts that Michigan State, just by throwing enough mud at the wall, they were able to collect sacks. Led the Big Ten in sacks. Maybe a little bit misleading. Maybe the pass rush wasn't that great on a down-per-down basis. Even though they collect a lot of sacks, they faced so many pass plays because Michigan State could not get off the field on 3rd down. To answer your question, I think the back 5 pass defense will be quite a bit better. I didn't hate the individual capabilities last year in the defensive backfield. What broke down was how they play collectively, especially as the season went along. Missed assignments, lack of same-pageness, like I like to say. They've shuffled the coaching there a little bit. Mel Tucker's coaching corners. Harlan Barnett overseeing safeties, having more control over it. Scotty Hazelton taking over linebackers. I thought linebacker coverage last year didn't make, it was kind of, it wasn't always all that well. So Tucker and Hazelton in there, Barnett, I think there'll be better same-pageness in the back five. And I think the individual talent is not bad. So yes, it'll be better than last year when they gave up more pass yards than anybody in the country. Hard to be worse than that. But I like to point out that in terms of yards allowed per pass attempt, I think Michigan State's like number 68 in the country, which is not great, but not worst in the country like the total yards is. And that's the more important revealing stat is yards allowed per pass attempt. So pass defense overall, fewer cooks in the kitchen, newer cooks in the kitchen, it'll be better. They've addressed it. They've gone after it. It should be better. Jay Bannon also asked, do I see Berger and Broussard being close to 150 yards per game as the two running backs this year? 150 yards per game? All right, last year in the Big Ten, 7 teams averaged 150 yards rushing or more. I know you're only asking about the two tailbacks. 150 is a pretty good figure. Last year, Michigan State was number 6 in the Big Ten at 175 yards rushing per game. More importantly, Michigan State was number 4 in the Big Ten in yards per carry, 4.8 yards per carry. Now, of course, that's going to be a little bit less this year because you don't have Kenneth Walker III doing it. Kenneth Walker III was an eraser out there. Sometimes Michigan State might not be in the best play against the defense, and maybe the blocking fails. K9 would turn it into a big play. Not every time, but enough that it altered the stats. So I'm not expecting number 4 in the Big Ten in yards per carry. I'm not saying it's impossible. I think Broussard's a guy with real good vision, maybe not the home run speed. Berger's a guy that went to Wisconsin with a lot of acclaim, had some good moments early in his career, fell out of favor a little bit last year, jumped in the portal. He has some things to prove. He has ability. Last year, Kenneth Walker averaged 136 yards rushing per game. Yeah, no one's going to be doing that. You know, you look at someone like Michigan last year. Michigan, a real good physical offense with Haskins and then Corum with some speed. You know, last year between those two, Haskins averaged 94 yards a game. Corum averaged 80 yards a game. That's a total of 174 yards a game. That's darn good. Two guys, 174 for a good, solid run-first offense. So you're asking, can Broussard and Berger provide 150? That's a real good goal number, and 150 would be productive. Can they do it? Sure. You're asking, will they do it? That'd be a good goal. That'd be a good B-plus season out of those guys. Am I predicting that'll happen? No, I don't know. You'll find out when I find out. Good question. I don't have the answer. Jay Bannon asks, if Michigan State has a downer season this year, what do you see as the cause, would be the cause of it? He's saying if Michigan State does not have a good year, what's the cause? Place kicker. I'm not saying Stone is bad. I'm saying they're unproven. And you have an unproven freshman coming in. We've seen seasons at Michigan State where a kicker can turn an 8-4 team into a 6-6 team or worse. Happened in 1993 with Bill Stoyanovich. Previously, he was a very good kicker. Went haywire in 93 and it wrecked the season. We saw it. It was John L. Smith's second year. We had a couple different kickers. Goss, I think was one guy's name. They put in that Matt Hoy walk-on from somewhere in West Michigan. They kept just going to different kickers, and that short-circuited the season. It can turn an 8-4 season into a 6-6 season or worse like that. I'd be worried about that. I'd be worried about offensive tackle depth. I'd be concerned that maybe the schedule is tougher than it appears right now. If Michigan State has a downer of a season, like you said, those three things I think would probably figure into it if it goes in that direction. I'm not predicting that'll happen, but you're asking if it goes off the tracks, what could cause it? Those three things. Question number 8, Ethan from Birmingham, Michigan, says, what order do you see Michigan, Michigan State, and Penn State finishing in the Big Ten East this year, which could be the very last year of the Big Ten East, by the way. How do I see those three finishing? I'm going to table that question till later. I've not looked deeply enough into Michigan and Penn State yet. Question number 9, Brett from Linwood. Linwood, by the way, is on the Saginaw Bay. in beautiful Lake Huron. Lake Huron still ranked the number one of all the Great Lakes in the SpartanMag.com Great Lakes Power Rankings. Lake Huron has been number one from the beginning. Lake Michigan makes a push. Lake Michigan's beautiful in a lot of ways. But Lake Huron's number one still. A lot of people upset about that. A little less congested over there. And I don't have property on either lake. I'm objective here in mid-Michigan. I happen to spend time in Lake Erie. Not bad. Northern Shore in Canada. Not bad at all. I don't have a dog in the fight. Just me. I don't mean to offend anybody. But the people are nicer on the Sunrise side in Lake Huron than they are on the Lake Michigan side. It's not as crowded. Highway 23 is a little bit more of a throwback. You don't have as much of the cookie cutter chain thing going on there. A little slower. People are nicer. I'm not going to blame it on Chicago. Lake Michigan is pretty. It's crowded. It's both great. I love Mackinac Island. Everybody knows that. That's Lake Huron. I don't think I'm going to Mackinac Island this year, though. Waited a little too long to get the accommodations, and that island is booked solid for overnight stays. Every single night that I looked into, waited too long. Oops. Do I have my Dowd's Market? Usually I've got my Dowd's Market mug. Instead, I've got the Ensemble Fly Shop, Grayling, Michigan. Love Grayling. But if anyone can help me out with some accommodations in Mackinac Island, doesn't look like I'm going there this weekend, this summer. Darn it. Anyway, Brett's from Linwood, which is Saginaw Bay, Lake Huron, between, it's just south of Pinconning. Pinconning, wonderful town. Great cheese in Pinconning. You know that. Pinconning is a border town that borders up north from the rest of Michigan. When do you get up north? When you cross Pinconning on the Sunrise side. Or if you go north of Clare on Highway 27, or Reed City, or Pentwater along Lake Michigan. Those are the four cities. Clare, Reed City, Pentwater, Pinconning. Anything north of that, you're up north, and you're happier there. The air's a little cleaner. You get a few more birch trees. The jack pine starts sprouting up. Smells a little different. Good times. Anyway, Brett from Linwood, Michigan says, "Hey, Jim, who do you think will be this year's surprise player to make a big jump in playing time and production?" I say, keep an eye out for Harold Joyner still. Sprinkling in there. Here and there. Malik Carr has that capacity. And, Trey Mosley, good, solid, strong guy. He's been productive already. Saved the season in 2019 as a true freshman in a lot of ways. And, if Jaden Reed gets a little tweak or something, could Trey Mosley become a number one? Maybe. But other than that, there's a lot of returning talent and skill positions on offense. So, in terms of production, I didn't think about defense. A big-time jump in productivity. Jacoby Windman coming in, Aaron Brule coming in, at those linebacker positions, they're going to be productive. Amir Speed's going to make an impact at corner. Bogle, got to wait and see. Big movie likes Petrowski, I know that. Slade is solid. But those linebackers, those transfers, Brule, Windman, Speed on defense, there's your answer. Question number 10 from Thermopylae from Parts Unknown says, any shot of Malik Carr playing a Matt Trannon type of role with the basketball team this fall in a pinch? My answer, I doubt it. He left the team before the tournaments, wanted to focus on football, didn't go to the Big Ten tournament or NCAA tournament. He added a lot of mass and strength and weight as he made a transition to the tight end position. In the past, he was a wide receiver and a small forward, as they used to call it. Added that weight, and he became, kind of a banger post player. That's not really his game in basketball. That's what Michigan State used him as on the scout team as a center or scout team guy, but that was never his skill in basketball. He was a wing type of guy. So he's added mass, and it's not been perfect for him as a basketball player. I have a feeling Malik Carr might not play basketball this year, but Keon Coleman is going to play basketball. I talked to Izzo about Coleman a little bit a couple weeks ago at the Detroit Economic Club, and they've got plans for Coleman because he can play defense. He's probably Michigan State basketball's best all-around athlete. He might have the best vertical jump on the team, basketball. I'm talking about Keon Coleman. And that and his ability to play defense and now a little bit more knowledge of the system enables him to play defense first, and defense gets you on the court. Keon Coleman, can ball handle. What can he do in terms of distributing? The shot was wonky when he first joined the basketball team, but now does he get a chance to play some basketball this summer with the team? I don't know. Maybe he goes over there once a week. I don't know. I'll look into it, but Keon Coleman, I think, could have a role, play some minutes. Question number 11, Zach in Ann Arbor says, who are the starting running backs for this season? He says, I know Michigan State usually splits with 3 backs, but only 2 backs get the bulk of the carries. Who do you believe those 2 will be, and how do you envision the workload being split? Good question. I think it's Broussard and Berger, the 2 transfers. They've looked at Elijah Collins. He's been a good soldier, good teammate, over 900 yards rushing as a redshirt freshman back in 2019. Jordan Simmons led the team in rushing in 2020 during the COVID-shortened season. Got Harold Joyner in there. But Davion Prim is a guy that really impressed people in the spring. So he's going to compete. I didn't see it. I just heard about it. I'm still flabbergasted. I thought that he was the guy coming in that recruiting class who had the least chance to help. I just didn't see it. I went and saw him play in the playoffs his high school year, senior year, and it wasn't great. But apparently he did some really good things this spring. So I don't know. But I think it's Broussard and Berger. And who's number 3? I wouldn't write any of those guys off. It could be Prim, could be Collins. Simmons, I don't know. Joyner, probably not, considering he was behind those guys before, but I think Joyner could get on the field in more of an H role, like a Pat Fitzgerald superback guy here and there. But I think it's Broussard and Berger. Question number 12, Matt in Springfield, Illinois. Also, give us a thumbs up. It's good for the algorithms. Thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We're only 2.5 hours into this thing. I should have said that earlier. My bad. Matt in Springfield, Illinois says, what was the other thing I was supposed to do, algorithm-wise? Can't remember. Matt in Springfield, Illinois says, who do you think Michigan State's peers are in the conference for football? He says, I think with the way Tucker is recruiting and running the program, it has shifted from Wisconsin and Iowa being Michigan State's peers to Penn State and Michigan. Great thesis, Matt in Springfield. Good point. Good question. Hadn't thought of it that way, but I would agree. I think Penn State is becoming peer group for Michigan State, maybe even Michigan. Michigan had a great season last year. Prior to that, they had their struggles. Michigan State's beaten the Wolverines 2 straight years. Everybody knows that. Michigan State not recruiting real well right now. I'm not sure how Harbaugh is going to adapt to the new environs of college football. Penn State's been recruiting real well over the years, and it's never quite translated into having a top 10 season. Yeah, I'm going to say, why not? For Michigan State, they're a peer group of Iowa and Wisconsin. And all due respect to Iowa and Wisconsin and the way they did things over the years, that's the way D'Antonio set out to do it. He did it and did the Iowa-Wisconsin thing a little bit better than Iowa and Wisconsin in several of those years. But they had to do it that way, which means doing it without having top 15 classes, top 20 classes necessarily. Now can you seek to do it more like Michigan and Penn State with top 15 classes? Previously, I would have said no. Stay in your lane, plan your work your plan, do it the Iowa-Wisconsin way. And that worked out well in D'Antonio back in the old era when Michigan State was not interested in cheating. Now there's no rules. Michigan State's revved up a different engine. Big Rig is rolling differently. And I agree with you, Matt, from Springfield, Illinois. I may not have said this 5 weeks ago, but now we've seen how Michigan State is built toward June and what they're doing here in June recruiting. And recruiting is the lifeblood of the program, and June is the lifeblood of recruiting. And Michigan State is painting a Rembrandt right now in that category. So I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to change on that. I'm going to say Michigan State's peer group right now in the Big Ten is Michigan and Penn State. That could change this fall. That could change at any time. But right now, from a June 2022 point of view, I'm going to say you're right. Michigan State doing it a different way. Michigan right now has 6 commitments, number 37 in the country in recruiting. Michigan State, really, really good. Michigan State's going to have a better recruiting class than Michigan this year, rankings-wise. That doesn't always mean that their recruiting class is going to outproduce a class that's ranked below them, but I don't see Michigan out-recruiting Michigan State this year. I don't think it's happening. And I don't know the next time they will out-recruit Michigan State. I remember a guy named Chuck Swirsky at WJR back about 25 years ago. He was when WJR was mouthpiece for Michigan and all that. He didn't really know what he's talking about when he came to college sports. He came in from Chicago. He's in Detroit for a couple of years. Then he went to Toronto or something. One of the things he used to say was, I had no idea about the fervor of the Michigan-Michigan State rivalry when he came to Detroit. That was news to him. But he was still pro-Wolverine because WJR was Wolverine blue territory back then. I remember him saying one night, Michigan State has not turned the corner on recruiting on Michigan. That's when Saban was the coach. And Michigan State will never turn the corner on Michigan in recruiting. I don't know where Chuck Swirsky is now, but I didn't necessarily disagree with him. But, and I know Mark D'Antonio out-recruited Michigan a couple of times. But, that always ebbed and flowed back and forth. But, and I don't mean, and I'm not here like, Michigan State pom-pom guy spiking the football before it happens. But if I'm an objective observer and looking nationally with looking the way Harbaugh's doing things, Tucker's doing things, I think it's turned this year, and I don't know when it turns back. Unless Michigan State has a bad season this year and something goes off the tracks and Michigan has another very good Big Ten championship year, maybe that rectifies itself. But as of right now, if I were predicting the recruiting weather going forward, Michigan State is right there with Michigan and Penn State. I say in all due respect because those two programs have been perennial top 15 recruiting powers. Yes, powers. And I would agree with Matt from Springfield, Illinois. Michigan State's in that peer group now. And it's looking like a new day for recruiting around here. And you know what? Michigan and Michigan State, neither one of them is all that busy in state. They're getting guys here and there, but it's taking place elsewhere. Michigan State's got a pretty good car in that race right now. Have you seen it? It's just 1 month. It's just year 3. But there's been a little climate change there. I shouldn't have said that. That's going to screw up the algorithms. I said that, and YouTube is going to flag that, and now I'm probably going to be deported or something. I don't know. Question number 13. What's the pecking order for associate assistant coaches for the basketball program? Pecking order, you got Mark Montgomery there, year number 2. Wojcik back for year number 2, and both of them in their second stint in the program. I'd say they're probably equals. Lots of brain power there, a lot of respect there. Izzo respects both guys. They're both going to have a lot of say in a lot of things. Probably alternate back and forth with some scouts, meaning like you're scouting Wisconsin this week, you got them. Scouting Indiana next week, I got them type of thing. Couple of smart guys, though. And Montgomery was always a pretty good assistant coach, head coach at Northern Illinois. Solid job there. Never quite got him over the hump. Came back a better coach. I mean, Mark Montgomery, he does a real good job in practice. Real good job. He's on it. He's pretty good. Question number 14. Who do I see winning the quarterback backup spot? Noah Kim, Hampton Fay, or Caton Hauser? And what is your best guess? What is your best guess who will be Michigan State's offensive line starters to start the year? Backup quarterback, I'm going to say Noah Kim. Just looking at him in the scrimmage, I thought that he read things quicker. Ball comes out quick. He's accurate. They didn't recruit him, but he's hanging around. I'm going to say Kim to begin things. Caton Hauser's got a lot of ability. He was learning in that scrimmage, made some mistakes here and there, but I'm hearing that they really love what they're seeing out of him, and I would not doubt the possibility that he's number 2 by October, maybe. Although you like to go into the season and here's your 1, here's your 2, and it usually stays that way. Great question. I don't know the answer, and they tried to keep it quiet. During the scrimmage, they didn't reveal who was getting second string reps. They kind of mixed it up. In so doing, all 3 quarterbacks came back. Hampton Fay, the best athlete of the 3. Big guy, can really run. Hampton Fay, I compare a little bit to Connor Cook, a young Connor Cook. Connor Cook was a big guy that could really run. Hampton Fay's bigger and faster. Connor Cook early on, a little bit scattershot, would make some mistakes. Hampton Fay similar, but he's got a high ceiling of potential. I think all 3 of those guys could start in the college ranks somewhere, but they're not all going to start at Michigan State, obviously. I don't have a good answer to that. I could see it. I'm thinking Kim. I've been hearing that the Hauser thing is for real. I would think Hauser would need more time, but I don't know. We learn as we go. We're still learning about Jay Johnson. We're still learning about Mel Tucker and how they do things. If it were Mark D'Antonio, it wouldn't be Hauser. They would go with someone's got a little more experience. But we're still learning about Tucker and Johnson and how they do things. I'm thinking Kim based on what I saw in the scrimmage. I just think that he's a little steadier right now. And the next question, what's your best guess as to who will start on Michigan State's offensive line? Starting offensive line, left tackle, I'll go with Horst. Left guard, J.D. Duplain. Center, Samac. Right guard. All right, right tackle, Spencer Brown. Right guard, either Matt Carrick or Dallas Fincher. I'm going to say Carrick. Fincher was solid in the spring. Oh, you got Brian Green coming in too, right? Brian Green could start at center. He could have Samac at guard. I thought that'd be an easier question than I thought. Not sure about center and right guard. Got Green in there. Got Carrick in there. Samac. Probably not Fincher. So, Carrick coming back from the knee injury. Is he ready? Hard to say. Green coming here expecting to start. I'm going to go Green at right guard, Samac at center. Samac was just okay at center when he had chances in previous years. Maybe they're expecting Green to come in and take that thing over. I don't know. I'll tell you what, they don't know either. They'll know more in August when the pads go on. Question number 15, last one of the night. Spartan Jacks from Parts Unknown says it was obvious to me that our running back probably won a couple of games for Michigan State that we would not have won without him, Spartan Jack says. He says, is there anyone who you think will man up this year? Tom and Jax. I think that's Jacksonville, Florida. Who will man up? I mean, nobody's going to do what Kenneth Walker did. They will have to win, and they'll have to do it without that type of explosiveness. So who's going to man? Is there anyone that's going to man up in that regard? No. I mean, I think Broussard's got nice vision. If he gets good blocking, he's explosive. Rushed for over 300 yards against Arizona when he was at Colorado a couple years ago. But he's not as explosive as Walker. So it has to be a collective thing. Peyton Thorne's going to have to be better, which is possible. Jaden Reed has been good. He needs to take it up a notch. Tight end position has to take it up a notch. As good as Hayward was last year. And the offensive line's got to come around. But there's no Kenneth Walker. They're going to miss him. Anyway, appreciate everybody playing along tonight and all the questions. Go over to SpartanMag.com. Check us out over there. Become a Magger. Went about 3 hours tonight. We have to get into a routine where we're doing this more often with shorter podcasts. Didn't mean to keep everybody up so late. It is midnight on the East Coast. Thanks for watching. Draymond Green on the verge of a triple-double and 4-time NBA champion. How about that? Draymond, my man. Hey, everybody, thanks for being a part of Spartan Mag Live. Give us a thumbs up. Go to SpartanMag.com. Become a subscriber. We need you over there. Subscribe to this channel. We'll see you next time. Thanks for playing along. Thanks to Jason Killip. Thanks for everybody for the questions and watching. SpartanMag.com. Good night, everybody. Thanks. See you next time. SpartanMag.com.